Okay, so hello everyone. Good evening. Welcome to the session. This is Naresh here, and I'll be your instructor for this course. So hope you're all able to hear me, team. Please do give me a quick confirmation on the questions panel if you're all able to hear me. Please make use of your questions panel on the GoToWebinar. So we will continue. Yes, team. Can I get a quick confirmation? Hi. Hi, Sanjay. Hi, Sujata. Hello, Hardik. Thank you. Great. Great team. Thank you so much for the confirmation. So welcome all for the DevOps Foundation course from DevOps University. So we will get started right now. So just for a quick introduction from my side, team. This is Naresh again, and I have over a decade of experience in the IT industry and all the DevOps tools, and I've been working across various segments of your IT industry. So I have a plenty of experience implementing a project from end to end. Now, along with that, I've been into the teaching from last 8 years because my passion is to teach or share my knowledge. In fact, so I would like to share all my knowledge. So I started teaching. Now this is just introduction, team, and I've been a corporate trainer as well as I do teach on a lot of online platforms everywhere. So hope I'll be able to help you guys as well understand about DevOps, what exactly it is and what exactly we are trying to achieve with the DevOps. Now that we will be doing it. So just for a quick agenda side, team, today we will be starting with the introduction to DevOps. That's the major one that you must understand. So we'll be quickly starting with very basic definitions. I know that a few people are from different backgrounds here, so which means that we have a mixed background of people. So what I'll do is that I'll start with the very basic definitions, right? And then we'll get slowly onto the piece where everybody can understand about the DevOps and why do we need DevOps accordingly. So today's session, team, mostly on the introduction to DevOps and the theoretical part mostly. And at the end, we will try to set up a server. We'll be discussing about tools and technologies, and we'll try to set up a server, where we can implement our labs and everything. So I'll try to help you. I think you might have already got instruction on how to set up a lab, the documents and everything. Hope somebody might have been walked through from the DevOps University side. If not, anyway, I'll be walking you through to set up, some server in the AWS today. So that's what is the mostly agenda for today. Okay, not a problem, Sujata. So we will do it today. Not a problem. So with that understanding, team, I think we can get started. If you have any questions, queries regards to anything, feel free to drop a mail at DevOps University, something, right? I'll be sharing this one, the email IDs and everything. So you can drop us a mail, and you have anything, you can feel free to drop, and you will be having an LMS access, right? So I think you hope you might have received email regarding the LMS access already. If you're not seeing in your inbox, maybe you can check your spam also. Sometimes it might go there. So please do check your email boxes for the LMS, learning management system, where you will be seeing about the presentations, right, as well as the recordings, the session recordings, everything will be there. So will be there in the LMS itself, and you will have a couple of quizzes and everything will be there regards to the program that we are doing it. So you can attend it, and we'll be driving accordingly. Great, thank you, Athel. That's what I'm telling you, Hardik. You would have received LMS link. Please do open your LMS link. You will find out your course. Under that, you will be seeing the session-wise agenda, and then you will be seeing the agenda as well as the recording as well as some quiz. You'll be seeing everything will be under your LMS. Okay. So that's just a quick introduction part, team. So just to know everything about what need to be done before we get into the session. So with this understanding, team, let's get into our session today. Okay, so we'll be starting with the basics. As I said, like we will be starting with a quick definitions of software engineering, or before even we get into software engineering, right? And one more thing, team, before we get started. So by default, everybody will be in a muted mode just to avoid some background noises and everything. Okay. So if you want to speak, maybe you can drop your questions if you have anything into the questions panel we're using right now. I'll be looking at them and I'll be answering as and when necessary. So I'll take through some topic first of all. Once I finish with the topic, I'll take the questions from your side. So we'll be going with that approach. Now, if you would like to speak to me, we'll be unmuting you at the end of the session. You can speak to me and you have any questions, you can raise your things accordingly, but we'll be muting or unmuting at the end of the session only, not during the session, just to ensure, we avoid the background noises and everything accordingly. Okay, so I hope everybody is clear. I think we will have a short break in between as well, around 5 minutes between the session we have. Definitely, since this is a 5 days course team, try to understand that this is just a 5 days course. It's just setting up your understanding on what DevOps is and everything. We'll try to cover whatever is possible up to the extent, right? We can definitely get into the topics, but not to the extent of, maybe if you're looking for advanced, may not be possible. Just like a mid intermediate course where you will be getting a basic knowledge on what is DevOps and how do I implement DevOps with the open source to technologies and everything. So that's just for your information, team. So let's think about it, and we'll try to do whatever is possible within our session. And I do not, and as I like, this is going to be completely practical. I'll be showing you the maximum practical except today, right? So maybe you can implement it by watching your videos, but do not implement in the session, so that will have a lot of confusion otherwise. So that's just for things, team, again. So I hope you're all clear on these topics. So with this understanding, let's get into the session. So here, team, let's get to the very basic understanding of everything. Very, very basic definitions. I know that most of you are working already. So if you are a working team, the regular terms that you normally hear in your organization is that nothing but the server, right? You normally hear a word called as server every day. Maybe you know what is exactly a server. A server is nothing but a computer team, just like say that your laptop, I can call it as a server, something which has some hardware, and we install an operating system and we use that computing system to processing something under your and make your results better accordingly. Now that is a server team. Basically in real time we use a lot of servers to run our applications, right? Now what is an application? Basically, if you try to understand, application is nothing but a piece of code. Sorry, I think you're able to look at this, right? Right, so if you're seeing that on my screen, team, right now, I believe everybody is good. Sorry that I think it was in a past one. Yeah, right. So this is the only thing that I discussed about the agenda, right? And then we were discussing about right now this one. So coming back to the server definition, team, a server is nothing but a computer in which runs certain application to make utilize it accordingly. Now we are talking about an application. Now the application is nothing but a piece of code that you normally develop it for making your day-to-day activities, whatever you do it accordingly, right? Now the server is that, team, again, we'd say that a server is kind of a piece, computer basically where you host it. So server can take a request and respond it back to you with some response always. That is what all you expected from a server, which means that when you're deploying an application to a server, team, there are mainly two types of applications that we always deploy, which is nothing but a standalone applications, right? A standalone application is nothing but an application that we install on our desktops. So what is that? The use of this particular desktop application is that only a single user can access it, which means that those who are in front of that particular system can access that particular application, right? That is the only thing that can be done. So for example, the VLC player or a calculator application or MS Office that you use it regularly every day on your laptop. So those are nothing but we call it as desktop applications. Okay, so we understood about a standalone, that is great, but there is another type of an application, team, which we regularly use it, which are known as your web applications. Now, what exactly are web applications, team? If you ask me, websites. Now, any website that you access it every day can be called as a web application. For example, DevOpsUniversity.com, or let's say that Facebook.com or Google.com. Now, those are all the websites we normally call it, but they are also a piece of a code or an application that is developed by somebody and they host it, When I say hosted team, that is nothing but you deployed it, or when we say deployed, you just nothing but installed on a server, right? Now somebody is running the facebook.com on a particular server somewhere in their organization, wherever they hosted it, that is where it is. Now you normally use your computer or a browser in your computer to send a request. As long as you have internet connection, you will be able to get a response from that if it is available. Means facebook.com server, wherever that application is running, that must be available, so you will be seeing the necessary response back to you, right? That is what it is. So the question here is that anything that you access it every day is nothing but a web application, we call it. Now the question here is that how did we enable these applications on multiple users access? Now that is the main purpose of your web applications. Multiple users can access the same application, and you can access the same application wherever you are in the geographic location. That is a flexibility of the web applications that you normally have it, right? Now how are we hosting it, or how are we ensuring that multiple users can access the same application? Everybody, whoever access it, they would normally see the same content as well, mostly, until unless if it is like enterprise application where you will see the user specific data. Once you get authenticated to your own application like Amazon, your own accounts will be there. If you log into your own account, you will be seeing your own data. If your friends log into his account, he will be seeing his own data accordingly. Now there are different types there again, that's how you can understand them. But considering the scenario team, how I can make an application available for multiple users. So this also has to be running on a server itself, but we use something called as a web server. Now what exactly is a web server here, if you ask me, right? So consider that you have a computer, just a general example again. So just say that you have a computer and you have a movie with you. Can you play the movie directly on your system? Is it possible for me to play a movie directly? Not really, right? We need a player, such as a media player or a QuickTime player or a VLC player. Basically, you need a runtime, nothing but just calling it as a player, called as a runtime here, to run the movie or to play the movie, basically, right? So which is what is making your movie run. Means there are certain things basically which needs a runtime to run them accordingly. Now similar to that one, when I design a desktop, I can directly install on a operating system like you install MS Office on your laptop directly. Then I can start using this one. But in order to run my web applications, I cannot directly put them on the operating system, but instead I need a runtime such as a web server. Means a web server is also a piece of software, but it provides a runtime for running my web application accordingly. In simple way, that's what you need to understand. So web servers or application server also we have it normally to run our web applications, right? Whatever it is you want to make it available for the end users. We normally take in system, a computer with some operating system, then we install web server, then we deploy, or then we install, or then we run our web application inside the web server accordingly. Now that's how team you must understand about. There are many web servers, there are many application servers in the market such as Apache or Nginx or IIS or Tomcat, or you have a WebSphere, you have JBoss. There are many technologies that are available to run your web applications accordingly. So this is just on the top level team. Before we get into anything, consider that this is what we are trying to do it. Servers are necessary or needed to run applications. Now we are developing some web applications and delivering or trying to deliver it to an end user. Nothing but a software is delivering to the end user accordingly. Now, without understanding deep, let's try to understand the definition of a software engineering. Nothing but it says that it is an approach towards the development, operation, and maintenance of a software. Nothing but VLC media player, or let's say that a google.com is a web application, and developing an application and making sure that available for the end user, nothing but the operations we call it. And finally, once you have it, ensure that that application is available for the end user 24/7 without any issues. That is called as a maintenance. So we are ensuring it is available always. Now that part we call it is normally a a maintenance mode of the application basically. Now, the goal of a software engineering team is always about to efficient and reliable software product to the client or to the end user or to the market, whatever you call it, whatever the type of a server application that you develop it, you normally give it to the end user accordingly. Now, in order to do this team over the years, we have a process designed. Now that process everybody knows about it, which is nothing but your software development lifecycle. So software development lifecycle normally talks about, so it usually talks about the planning, the creating and testing and delivering of a software to the client again, just like we are designing the rules and responsibilities, how to achieve our goal basically, right? Now, SDLC process also aims to produce a high quality software to the end user again. That's all you do it, or to meet the customer expectations, we call it. Now here team, considering that, right, over the years or over the decades from the time we started with the development of softwares, now we've been following various types of the models. The out of which the first one we call it as your waterfall model. Now everybody knows about the waterfall model team, right? I hope you all know as well, but just see that quick recap what it is this. Now a waterfall model team is that a new phase in the development process begins only if the previous phase is complete. What do we mean by that is that, as we just discussed about SDLC, which talks about some requirement gathering till the delivery of the product, right? Now requirement gathering, then analyze the requirement, then design the requirement and implementation. There are different phases of the software development lifecycle. All of them are a sequential steps. One step need to be finished before you start another one, right? Now with this model team, as you can see that it will take a very long time to deliver the product to the end user, right? So time to market, we call it, is very high. Now, if you think about the current trend team, a current situation in the market, right? Even if you order something in Amazon, you expect immediate delivery, if possible today itself, if not tomorrow, you expect it. Or there may be, because of certain reasons, it might be a couple of days also, that's fine. But you expect immediate delivery, or as soon as possible, you want the product to be in your hands. That is what is the expectation. We have it in the current trend basically, right? Now that is the first challenge we had it. So using waterfall model, it's going to definitely take a longer time because it's a step-by-step approach or a sequential approach to implement various stages of the development process. Now that is one thing. And then no client interaction, which means once the requirement gathering is completed, we hardly interact with the end user, right? That's what the client basically, he gives the requirement and we start implementing. Maybe we'll take 4 or 5 months also. We never interact with the client until unless he wants to interact with us. We don't go them because the requirements are very clear, a well documentation process here. We document very well, so everything looks cleaner, and then we'll proceed with the plan accordingly. Now that's the second thing, no client interaction. So client may not be happy with that kind of approach always. Now the last one is that requirements are rigid, which means that we cannot accommodate dynamic requirement. Now what do we mean by this? In simple words, if you ask me to tell it, so let's say that initially we have taken a requirement from the client. Now the client asked me to, okay, he has given a requirement to paint a wall with a red color. That is what he has given a requirement. Now we looked at it, we analyzed it, we designed it, and then we started implementing it, which means that I'm in the implementation phase and I have already done the halfway through something, a red color and the painted half of the wall. Now all of a sudden client came back to me and said, hey, I gave you the requirement of red, I don't like it that one, so can we change it to blue? Now we say that, okay, so sorry, we are already in the implementation, so let me finish it completely. Now let me deliver the red color first to you, and I'll take that blue as a new requirement, and we'll follow the same approach again to implement it. Now this way of approach, right, the client will not be happy for sure, because he is requesting, he's the one who's spending the money, but you're saying no, that is not possible. So he will definitely not gonna like it. That is what the problem that you have it with this a model basically, which is called as your waterfall model. We have these kind of challenges. We are working towards a software delivery process, right? So end goal team, you must keep that we need to deliver our software into the market faster. That is the only goal that you are working towards, no matter where you are working right now. So with that, we are actually implementing various approaches. Now, this is the first approach that we discussed. That's great. Now, along with that team, people do talk about waterfall because we need to understand the various stages also to ensure the latest technologies are understood. Now, we talked about waterfall. We know that that takes a longer time. Now we need to understand a few other words in this area, which is monolithic architecture of the application. And there is something called as a physical servers. Now there is something called as a data center where we call it as application infrastructure. Now what exactly is a data center team? Let's come from the last here, application infrastructure. Let's say that we have something called as data center. Now, what exactly is a data center team? If you understand it, hope you all know it again, because every organization do have their own data centers, nothing but a simple server room, right? In a simple words, if you ask me, a server room means where you take a building or take a place and you keep it a room and you put all your hardware there. Now that thing we call it as a server room if it is smaller. Now, if you have thousands of servers, thousands and thousands of servers, now that place becomes a data center, means a huge building where you keep all the hardware and ensure that they are all powered up, that you have a backup powers maintained, ensure the systems are up and running always, you ensure the network is there, network backups are there. Now, we ensure that the computer needs the cooling temperatures to ensure they run smoothly, so you maintain a cooling temperatures. Now, whatever is needed to ensure your servers are up and running always, you take all that maintenance part, starting from purchasing the hardware to stood up the building, maintaining the backups, maintaining the security. So entire things are maintained by your organization. Now that building, we call it as basically a data center, right? So that's where you store everything. That's where you put everything there accordingly. Now that every organization have their own data center earlier days where they have to run it, just simple as that. If I want to eat my tummy full or if I want to make my tummy full, I might have my own home, right? I might have my own kitchen, right? Because I don't want to go anywhere. Earlier days, everybody used to cook there itself. So at the end of the day, you are cooking yourself and you bring whatever is necessary. You buy the vegetables, you do everything. Now finally you cook and you eat. That's what is something. So to make your tummy full, you are putting a lot of investments by preparing a kitchen and putting the vessels, buying the vegetables, cooking yourself and putting the time, and everything is there at the end. The goal is to make your tummy full, right? Here also the goal is to run my application. In order to run my application, I need all those things underlined. Then only I can run my application and utilize it accordingly. Now as simple as that, the data center is like your kitchen, right? Just a kitchen. The goal is to eat here and the goal is to run application there. That's the only thing you have to have an idea about. Now there is simple word stream we call it as data center, right? Every organizations do maintain their own data centers for sure. Now that's one thing. And the second thing is about what we will have in a data center. We used to have something called as physical servers. Now what is a physical server team? Like everybody know it already. Physical means that there is something you can touch and feel, right? Consider that earlier days we used to have physical servers, which means that I have a certain hardware, right? I have certain hardware, just simple as that one. Now, certain hardware in the sense, whenever you want to purchase a laptop, what capacity we think about him normally? You normally think about 4 CPU, 8 GB RAM, 2 CPU or 8 GB RAM, and let's say that 512 GB hard disk. Now, including all other hardware components, you build a computer for you. Now, that is what we are also doing it. The same thing we call it as a physical here, but in organization at enterprise level, we have a huge capacity servers. Let's say that 100 GB RAM, and let's say that a 5 terabytes of disk. Now, why do I keep this much huge capacity at my enterprise basically? Now, earlier this team, of course, consider that you have built a computer, you put an operating system here. Think that if I want to run my application, as I told, this is my application, right? In order to run this application, a web application especially, I'm talking about it, consider that you need a web server such as Tomcat. That's what I told you. Now let's say that also your application may be a Java based application. Consider that you also install Java, whatever the dependencies that need to be needed to run your application, you normally put everything here, right? Now this is how, consider that this is what is my application stack which I'm running on this particular server, right? But do we guarantee that does my application need this much resource, this much computing horsepower we needed to run a simple web application? Do we really think that? Not really, right? You may not require this much computing resource to run my basic applications. Maybe if your application is bigger, okay, great, that's fine. But still, this is going to be a very huge capacity to keep on a single server. But why do we use to keep this one is that in earlier days, right, when we started with the computers, we never do a performance testing, right? Means that, in other words, I do not know how much resource required by my application to run it smoother under certain circumstances where the end user may not should not see any problem. Now that's why we used to keep a high-end capacity service, and we used to run, okay, let it take it. If they take it, that's good. If it's not there, that's okay, because my end user should not see any problem. That is what the main intention behind the scene, right? Now we used to run it like this. There is a lot of resource wastage. That's what we see it. Now building up a physical server, keeping up a physical server is also a big, huge task basically, right? Maintaining them is a bigger task. So you have a lot of expenditure for your organization to set up simple physical boxes and run the applications on the physical boxes basically. You may not be getting the return on the investments. Means if your company is spending $100, how much returns am I getting it? Again, now the company would calculate that always, because everybody is doing a business on everything, so definitely they would expect something. Means the profits may not be bigger if you go with this approach. That is what all you understand basically. So this is what is called as a physical server. We used to have all the physical server earlier, and we used to run our application directly on the physical servers. This is how we used to do it. Now this is on the top level team can think that application or servers where we used to run is something used to be called as a physical servers. Now apart from this one, we also had a problem of monolithic architecture. Now what exactly is a monolithic architecture basically, if you try to understand, right? So I hope you all know about this. If you do not know also, that's fine. Let me put it in a simple words again here. Consider that again, I'm running my application here, right? So consider that this is my web application. Again, I'm saying that application Tomcat and Java. That is what it is, something simple application I'm talking. Consider that this is my facebook.com application. So you hit it, I got a facebook.com login page, right? Now along with that, when you enter the credentials, does your application saves the credentials anywhere? Not really, right? It needs another component such as database. Okay, think that a database needed to store my credentials or to store some my data or account information, everything. Whatever it is there, I needed a database. That's great. Now, okay, so let's go with another example, such as if you go to Amazon and purchase something, right? You open your things, same thing with the Amazon also. You purchase something, whenever you purchase it, you immediately get a SMS. You immediately get an email on your mailbox as well, which means that your application is utilizing some messaging services, using your mobile carriers or maybe your email servers that you stood up in your organization. But there are multiple things your application is dependent on, right? Now consider that whenever you're running a monolithic application, a monolithic architecture means that, now consider that I'm developing an application code in such a way that all these component codes are tightly coupled together, right? Are tightly coupled together, which means that I cannot separate them and host them on a different locations. They have to run together always. If you break them, the functionality of the application will be broken. So you have this kind of a heavy bundle. Means if I prepare application plus database plus messaging, whatever the code that I have it, if I write a huge code like that, now that will become a huge application for me. Means the heavyweight application that you normally call it, right? Now what happens if you are heavyweight? Basically you're hard to move, right? Because we want to deliver application from one environment to other environment, or from one server, so from development into production like environment. Now that will become a very hectic task for me to move application code from one location to other location. That is the first problem with the monolithic architecture, right? Now the second thing is that it is hard to troubleshoot the issues also, because you have a big one application code in a single place, it will be hard for me to understand where exactly the problem is. So we have problems like this team we call it as tightly coupled architecture, or it is also called as monolithic architecture. Okay, so this is what all you need to understand here. So just for initial days, we used to have this kind of an architecture that was there. We used it. People are still using some or the other way, but this is not a real good approach for delivering applications faster. Because I'm saying again, the expected in the current trend is that you must deliver your software faster. If I'm heavyweight, I cannot move faster, so I cannot deliver it faster either. Now that is the problem team that we have it. That is the first stage of IT evolution, we call it. That is the first stage of IT evolution. So where we had major problems, major things, of course, we started at that point of time. So we want to improvise ourselves. So we learned a lot of things from this kind of a things implementation, that we started evolving ourselves into the next phase, which is nothing but your second evolution of IT, we call it. I hope everybody is working on that, right? That is nothing but your agile team. That is nothing but your agile. Now I hope everybody knows about the agile. How does agile works, right? What is agile, a sprint and sprint iterations, everything. I'm going to discuss it briefly, but before I get to this topic, do you have any questions so far? Anybody? Hope you're all able to follow me, team. Please let me know if you have anything need to be thinking according. You may put your questions in the questions panel again. Anybody have anything here? Okay, great. Thank you so much, everybody. Fantastic. So let's try to go ahead and then try to understand about the agile, right? What exactly is agile? Then how does agile help me to develop the applications faster, develop the piece of code faster, and deliver it maybe to the market faster? That is what we do. So considering this one team here, look at this. Basically, you guys know about this, but let me quickly reiterate this one quickly, right? So in agile model team, we follow something called as a sprint model, or a sprint iterations, we call it. Means that team agile is always a focused delivery point. So we normally give a deadline to the developers by fixing some time. Say that we normally follow a sprint. A sprint refers to a particular timeline in which a task given to a developer need to be finished accordingly, right? Now consider that is the sprint, we call it. Or considering, coming back here, in agile also we normally start taking the requirement from the client, but instead of taking all the requirement at once, we'll take a minimal requirement. We'll try to push it for working or implementation side, or design, implementation, everything. Then we start working on it parallelly. We take bits and pieces of the requirement rather than taking the whole requirement at once. Now that is where the product owner will gather the requirement. Now he will give us the priority, means that what clients need it immediately. He will prioritize the user story. Now the user story is nothing but a task or a feature or some defect that you are working on application already. So that's one thing you do it. So the task that can be done is called as a user story, right? So he will write the user stories, he will prioritize the user stories. Then we'll start planning with the sprint planning. We'll say that, okay, this sprint lasts for 2 weeks. Now within the 2 weeks, okay, you guys need to take some work here on these user stories and start working on. So the team will pick up the user stories necessarily, whatever they think they can do it. Now the sprint starts, which means that the time has begun to start, reach the goal. Now they will start working on it. The developers will start working on coding or whatever it may be. But there is a guy called as Scrum Master. He will host a daily call here, which is nothing but we call it as a Scrum call, or a daily Scrum meeting, or a stand-up meeting. There are multiple names to it. Now people have to join, or the team here have to join the call every day morning before you start your work, and update something. Okay, what did you do yesterday, and what are you going to do today? And then finally, do you have any impediments? These are the three questions that you need to answer every day in the call, so that your Scrum Master will be tracking your work. If you have some trouble in implementing something, he will help you coordinate with people and to resolve the issues accordingly. Now that is what his duty basically he will be doing it. Now consider that we are done, or we are almost reached at the end of the sprint, which means that the last day of the sprint, we have it. Great, we are done with our work. So you will try to do something called as a sprint review meeting, or we also call it as a demo. Means that whatever the things that you worked on, we will demo to the client immediately, right? And you will try to get the feedbacks from the client, right? So that if the client likes it, whatever you did it, fantastic, we'll move on to the next set of requirements. If the client did not like it, okay, re-implement that with the new changes that client tells you to do it. So here team, so this is what we do it. Rather than taking the whole requirement, we are taking in bits and pieces, and we are continuously getting the feedback from the client. So you're having a regular client interaction, right? That is one thing. And you're also that whenever the client does not like something, you are trying to make the changes immediately rather than implementing the whole thing again, which means that the dynamic requirements are possible with this kind of an approach we have it. So whatever the challenges that we discussed with waterfall model were resolved with this one. So with the development process, the people are able to showcase something immediately to the client, and client is getting happier. So with every 2 weeks, you're going for the incremental model or iterative model. So rather than doing all at once. Now that way, the client is looking at something every 2 weeks. That is also happy for him. You are going with a step-by-step approach, which made us the software delivery process or software development process, right, with speed it up. So means we speed up a lot in giving the software to the client or showcasing the software to the client where we are trying to do it. Now this is the whole idea team that of the agile. Basically we have it. So with agile, which is there in the market there from over a decade now almost, and everybody loved it, everybody started using it. Now almost 100% of the organizations implemented agile, everybody following this model now for the software development process. And at the end of the sprint, again, you also have one another meeting, which is a sprint retrospective. I know that most of the people don't like this, right? You already done something basically, but what are the identifiers? Is there any improvement area, or can we do it in a better way what we have done already, right? You look for the better improvements, or you look for the betterment of what can be done in a better way. You seek the you seek the challenges or whatever it is you do it. So you just try to learn from the mistakes again what we did it, so maybe it can be done better way. So these are all the things will be discussed at the sprint retrospective again. That is again, people do call that the agile has one major drawback is that there are too many calls. I hope you also facing the same issue, I believe, but there are too many calls. They say that will be finished in 1 hour or 15 minutes, but never finish in the time. We spend a lot of time in the meetings rather than working on it accordingly. Honestly speaking, that's also there accordingly. So that's what it is, team. On the agile side, that's how we improvised a lot, right, with the development process. Let's say that we also needed improvement on the other areas that we discussed earlier as well. So with agile, of course, we wanted to change some monolithic architecture somewhere, which gives me a better results. We moved on to NTR architecture. So physical servers, we understood that they are heavy and maintenance is heavy. Now, preparing them heavy as well as running an application on a physical server leading to a lot of resource wastage, computing power wastage, basically. So how can I make better utilize the hardware resources, right? That is where we started converting physical servers into the virtual servers accordingly. Now, what are the virtual servers again? We're going to talk about it. Now, finally, we also started utilizing the hosted data centers, right? Now, what do we mean by hosted data centers here? Data center is your own building, as I told it, your own kitchen, right? But the hosted data center is nothing but your hotel, right? Hotel in the sense, whenever you feel hungry, do you want to cook yourself in your own kitchen, or do you want to go to a hotel and order a meal and then just eat and come back and you pay for what you are getting it, right? Now that is the same theme here. Instead of building my own data center, instead of me purchasing the hardware, instead of me putting them together, everything, and instead of me creating operating system, everything, we just go to a third party company, ask them, okay, I need 10 servers and I'm ready to pay for it. So the third party company will have their own data centers. They will prepare the servers, they will purchase the hardware, whatever they needed, they will do it. So you ask to a server with the capacity, they will prepare the server, they'll give you the server, and you go and run the application on that. So that is called as hosted, which means that you're not running within your data center. You took your application and you're running inside others data center. Basically, that is called as hosted data center, means you hosted your application on a different data center. That is nothing but we call it as hosted application infrastructure, or you may call it as a hosted data center also. That is thing you can understand about it. So that's one thing, team, about the hosted data centers, which we started using it because I do not want to spend a lot of money on things basically. So we started minimizing it a little bit on saving. Renting is a much easier option for me than preparing myself everything. So that is one thing, team, you can understand about it. Now the second thing is about deployment and packaging, which is called as your, right, the physical servers are converted into a virtual servers. Now I hope you all know, team, what is a virtual server, but let me explain it in a simple way again, right? So this is not the one. So let's say that this is the physical server I was talking about it. Now consider that you have the same thing here. I'm taking the same physical server box, right? Same capacity, I'm taking it, right? Same capacity hardware, whatever I want to take it, I'm taking it. But consider that here, if I install an operating system which will let me utilize my computing horsepower, right, which becomes a server for me, a single physical server. Now, instead of doing this one, team, we have had a different approach this time, right? Now that thing we call it as a hypervisor, right? Now, hypervisor is a software, team, just like your operating system only, which can be directly installed on top of a bare metal, nothing but a hardware directly, right? And once you have that one is ready, now this provides me something called as hardware virtualization, right? What do you mean by hardware virtualization here? Nothing but it will help you partition your hardware resources into a smaller boxes or a smaller pieces. Just like you have a 10,000 square feet, right? You have a 10,000 square feet of area on your name. Now, instead of you build a house for your own, right? Instead of utilizing this 10,000 square feet and you just build a single home there. Now, only the one you are living at, you may not utilize the entire space properly. Instead, if I give this to a builder will build a 10 different flats, right? Means he will be putting a big building with a flats in it, right? Multiple flats. So each flat can be utilized or given to a separate family so that everybody have their own thing, right? And everybody, or you're utilizing the entire space in a much better way by designing an apartment or a building that you do it accordingly. So instead of a single building, I'm simply putting the building but with a partition structure, so you're able to utilize that every apartment would get 1,000 square feet, so that you could build a 10 different flats on the same space, and every flat is utilized by a different family for different purposes. You can use it accordingly, so everybody have their own space, right? Everybody have their own private areas and everything that you get it. So means they are all independent and isolated areas that you normally get it. So similar to that one, team, what I'm trying to do is that I'm partitioning my hardware resources into multiple partitions basically that you do it. So whenever you build or whenever you create a partition here, this partition is made on your resources. Like you design an apartment with a area that you want to do it, means 1,000 square feet is I'm allocating to one apartment. Now you can allocate any space that you want it across. So here also, team, whenever you create a partition, so you must allocate some resources to it. That is nothing but your hardware resource. So I'll say that a 4 CPU you take it, 10 GB RAM you can take it, and let's say that you can have 2 TB of disk here. Now this is what the capacity I'm giving to my virtual machine one, right? So once I have this virtual machine one created, now this virtual machine let me run my operating system just like you are directly running on the physical hardware. This would let me run my operating system and I run my application here, right? Tomcat, and you have Java. Now the beauty here is that every virtual machine is independent and isolated. They can have their own capacity, they can have their own type of application that can be running. For example, here, this one can have 8 CPUs, right? 8 CPU, and let's say there are 20 GB RAM, and let's say that you have here 1 TB of disk. Now I can partition the resource whatever the way I want it. It doesn't matter for me. Based on the underlying hardware resources available, you could simply do it. Now here you can run a Windows based application maybe, right? Consider that you are installing IIS web server, right? And you can run a .NET based application. So whatever the technology that you want to run it, whatever the way you want to create your virtual machine, you could do that, right? Now this is how team the us virtualization enabled us to make utilize the resources in a better way. First point. Now you could run multiple different application on the same hardware, which was not possible with this physical servers, right? So you have a multiple flexibilities. Again, this is completely controlled by a software, so it is easy for me to create a virtual machine. It is very easy for me to create a virtual machine when I have the underlying resources are ready. Now the easiness has brought up here, that is what you did, you better resource utilization. Now it is easy for me to run multiple applications also without putting a lot of hardware or a lot of expensive stuff in my data center. I could run multiple applications easily on a single hardware. Now this is the advantage team that you get it with a virtualization. Now I'm not sure how many of you used virtual servers on your Windows laptops or the laptops that you have it normally. Not sure team if you guys used or ever installed this VM workstation or VirtualBox, right? Oracle VM VirtualBox that you have it. Now this is nothing but I'm calling it as a hypervisor. Now this is a different hypervisor team than the one which I've shown you here. Now basically we have two different types of hypervisors. We call it as type 1, which can be installed on top of hardware directly, right? Now that is nothing but your type 1 team, which is what we use it at the enterprise level. Okay, means that at your organization level, we always go for the type 1 hypervisor, which we normally directly install it on top of a hardware directly, so that we can directly use the virtual machines account. That is possible. Now the type 2 is something team which you normally use it for your personal use, not for the enterprise level, but the personal users people can use it. Like I used Oracle VirtualBox to, to normally create the things or to create multiple virtual machines on my laptop. Means the laptop is a physical thing for me, right? Now I have a Windows operating system on it. On top of it, I install this one. Means that which, right, which can be installed on top of OS, right? Now I have a Windows operating system. I have a hardware. I have Windows OS. On top of it, I installed a software called as Oracle VM VirtualBox Manager. Now within this one, I'm creating a virtual machines. Like I have an Ubuntu operating system here, which is another Linux operating system that I have it. I'm running on top of my same physical or laptop basically, right? Now I have two different machines. I can run a Windows application or .NET application on my Windows. I can run a Java application in my I can run a Java application in my Ubuntu Linux server, right? I can do two different servers altogether. Now this is called as your virtual box or a virtual machine basically. Now whenever you create a virtual machine team, the system needs resources like I told it. It needs like what is the memory you allocated, what is the number of processors you allocate to it, what is the hard disk size that you allocated. That is mandatory capacity that you must give it whenever you work with virtual servers, right? That is what understanding team. You can see that my Ubuntu server is getting started. Means that it is the same hardware, right? But I'm able to run two different operating systems parallelly. Now these things we call it as your these things we call it as this thing we call it as your nothing but a virtualization that we do normally, right? Now this is what you can understand team. So this is how you can understand how you can create a virtual box on top of a Windows laptop and you start utilizing the things accordingly. Okay. Now this is called as type 2 that you can use it. This is the virtualization we call it. Now enterprise level we go with the type 1 always, which is a full virtualization with which we directly convert the hardware into a multiple virtual machines accordingly. Now this is just an understanding team that you just have it accordingly. Okay, how we normally run it or how we converted our physical servers into a virtual servers accordingly. Okay, that is what the all understanding team you must have it. Consider that that is about it. Now considering that scenario again here, we are done with that. So we understood now virtual servers are much better than your physical servers, which let me run or which let me save a lot of money for my organization, and then let run my multiple applications easily also, that we can understand it accordingly. That's just a software, right? What is just an hypervisor here? What is an operating system? If I ask you what is the answer you would give it? It's just a software, right? Hypervisor, like operating system, right? You have a metal or hardware on top of you installing operating system. So operating system is just software which is letting you utilize your hardware. Similarly, hypervisor is also software which is letting you utilize your hardware in a different way. That is the only thing you got it. Okay, that is just you can understand. Okay, so can you reshare the steps for Oracle VM? I think we haven't shared earlier also, right? We haven't shared earlier also. Maybe I can give you the guideline later. Maybe we'll do it. Okay, I think we'll try to do the AWS cloud today, so mostly, so with which you should be good at, but otherwise we'll do it later. Okay, right. So here it is. Coming back to this one theme, the application architecture, we changing from monolithic to the n-tier architecture. Now, what exactly is n-tier architecture? How it is differentiated from the this one, right? Consider that I'm going back here. Now here team, this is what I told you about your monolithic architecture or a tightly coupled architecture, where you see an application plus all of its dependencies are bundled together and running on a single server accordingly, right? But in a monolithic in a this one team, in this n-tier architecture, or this is also known as a three-tier architecture, right? Or this is also known as something called as a decoupled architecture, right? Decoupled architecture. So what do you mean by decoupling here, right? We know that there are various dependent components that are tightly coupled. So we want to decouple them and running it as different system, which means to that, let's say that I have a server here, right, where I would like to just run my application. Consider that I did it. Consider that there is an example of bank team. Let's say that everybody do use your internet banking. Now consider that there is a bank application that I'm running here on my server. Means this could be a virtual machine right now. So you have this one, and then you run application here, a simple bank application, no database, no messaging services, nothing running, just an application just deployed on this particular server. Now I'll be, as I said, like it will be decoupling. So I'll take another server or another virtual machine, right? And I run my database here, right? Because my application needs a database. So I would be decoupling. I will be running a database at a different location. Now consider that you need to access your application, right? So this is where you talk about something called as your browser, right? From the browser, you normally send a request into the server. Now the server will respond to you with a login page. Now, once you enter the credentials, now it has to be authenticated. So your application server or this application running on this virtual machine will be communicating with a database. It will give you or authenticate whatever it is necessary. It will do it accordingly. So we are decoupling various levels of an application into various segments, right? That is what is called as a decoupled architecture in simple words. Now here team, if you want to segregate them like this, now you just have three different levels. So this is what we call it as a client tier. This one also can be called as a tier 1. Now this is called as a middle tier. This is also can be called as tier 2, right? Now the last one team here, we call this as backend tier, right? Backend tier. This is also known as your tier 3, right? Now this is just team, you can understand that in the perspective of an end user is thinking like that, okay, I have a front end, which is a client tier where I'm running my application. Now the actual application is running on a server, that one we call it as a middle tier, where we are running the middleware technologies, we call it, and then you run your application in the middle tier, and the database is required for my application, so I'm running somewhere else. Now that is called as backend to my application, right? The front end is exposed here, the backend will be accessed by the application accordingly. Now technically, if you speak team, there are three different tiers here. That's why we call it as three-tier architecture, or it is also known as n-tier architecture, because your application may contact with multiple backends also. It is not that, not necessarily always only your database. Maybe for messaging you might have put it a separate server, right? Messaging I call it, right? You might put a different server and you're able to hear here, right? Now this is how team you can understand about how your three-tier or n-tier can be called accordingly. So we are decoupling the masked components and we are running it separately. Now that's why it is called as your decoupled architecture also accordingly. Now this is in the end user perspective team, that you can think that a client tier, a middle tier, and a backend tier. But if you talk about a developer standpoint, we normally call it as presentation layer, right? Presentation layer, and there's something called as business layer, and you call something called as your application data layer, nothing but your database, right? Presentation is nothing but the nice UI design that people do it. The business layer is that where your application processing the logic. Just for example, your application, you submitted a transaction basically to transfer the amount from your account to your friend's account. Now that logic is been written in the application code, so it will process the transaction. It will try to update the database, right? It will deduct some money from your things and will update the database tables accordingly. So whatever the logic that you write it, that it has to update the backend and everything. Now that thing is called as business logic. So that's why we say that this is a business layer where it performs the transactions what you intend to do it. Now, apart from that one, the data layer is to store the data, which means that if I want to pull my last 1 year statement, I should be able to see that. So the data layer is responsible for storing the data permanently. Whenever you need it, you can retrieve the data as you wish it accordingly. Now, this is the understanding team that you must have it about the three-tier architecture, or it is also known as your decoupled architecture, which was segregated. So with this architecture, you can understand that we are becoming lightweight. Compared to monolithic, we became a little lightweight because database can be separately installed, messaging can be separately installed, application can be separately installed. So we segregated code separately, right? So that becomes a lighter weight, first of all. And the second thing is that since it is not dependent anymore, so we can easily troubleshoot the issues, easily ship between multiple servers. That is even possible for us. Now, this is the understanding that you must have it. This is how we changed over from physical to the from monolithic architecture to the n-tier architecture accordingly. Now, this is the understanding that you must have it about the next phase or the second phase here, evolution of IT accordingly. Okay. So with this understanding team, of course, now we saw that various advantages over the waterfall. Like everything is better when compared to the waterfall, definitely. N-tier helping us to lightweight, move faster. Virtual servers are being much better than the physical servers for hosting application, utilizing the resources, everything. Hosted data center make my life easier. Now, so we made everything better for sure, but what are we still lacking with Agile? Right? There must be some more challenges that we're still looking at it, which are helping, or which is the reason we are moving into the next world, which is going to be your DevOps. Right? The next phase is nothing but a DevOps team. As you can see, there is only one space left over for me there. So which is going to be the DevOps for sure, right? But before we understanding the DevOps team, let's go ahead and then try understanding some challenges that we still have it, with your Agile, that are leading us to the DevOps model. So that is what we're going to understand it. So this is the challenges team that you think about it. I'll start from the bottom. So we say that there are limited release windows. Releases may slip or fail. Now, what does this mean basically is that, consider that team, whenever you are releasing an application into a production, consider that every organization do have a various set of environments, right? Now you have a starting from the development, and you have a QA, right? You have a QA, and then you have your pre-production, and finally you have your production. Now the production is the environment team where you normally have it. This is dev, this is QA, and then you have something called as pre-prod, right? And then finally you have something called as production, or a live, we call it, whatever you call it. This is what it is. Now end goal is the team to deliver application into the production environment. That is what is the end goal. Now you might have various environments below that, because to test your application thoroughly before you deliver it to the end user. That is what just an understand team, that you just have it. Now whenever you're releasing an application into the production team, normally we will give something called as a downtime. Now most of you might be seeing that from the bank you will get a message saying that, okay, this during this time the application or banking, internet banking cannot be accessible, refrain from using the services accordingly. Now why are they giving some message to you? Because you are the end user and you're going to use that application. If you try to use the application during the time they say that application will not be available, now you will see that some problems will happen to you, right? Now that's why they will warn you. That's why we see that it is called as limited release windows, which means that they are certainly not updating your application whenever they want it. Instead they go for a certain maintenance window. Let's say that during the Saturday, or every weekend, or every Saturday midnight, 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. is my maintenance window, right? With during which I'll take down my application, which means end user will not be able to access the application, right? Now that is called as a maintenance window, or that is also known as a release window, where you will try to release the latest version of an application by giving a downtime to the end user. So if you miss this window team, again you have to wait for the next window. If something happened in this one, the application deployment failure, you completed the deployment window, but that is still not done. So you will roll back and you will have to wait for the next release window again. Now the question here is that, though my application is ready, why would I need to wait for a maintenance window? Can't I do a live update? Can't I do a the without a downtime application deployment? Can't I do it? Now this is what is the goal team. Means I'm not saying this is a challenge. Basically you may think that an improvement area we need to look at it. Why would I need to give a downtime to the end user to update an application? So take that as a challenge and try to implement a process called as continuous integration and continuous delivery model. Without giving a downtime, we must put our application into the production. That is what is a challenge here. So why are we giving the downtime still? We should not give a downtime. That is what is the main understanding that you need. That is a challenge, right? You take it as a challenge and reduce the downtime again. Limited release windows, that's what I'm telling it, Hardik, here. So consider that whenever you release an application, consider my application, my client has an approved maintenance window during the Saturday midnight, 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. Correct? Now I can't deploy my application into a server. I can't deploy my application into a server during the business days, like Monday to Saturday or Monday to Friday. I cannot run it. I cannot deploy it. If I give a downtime during the business days, people would face issue accessing an application, right? Now that is the reason we have a release window specifically mentioned, which is a client approved window. Like I told it, for the internet banking example, so normally the bank would send you a message saying that during this time the application is not available. Now why are they sending that message to you? Because there might be upgrading. Sometimes you might see the website is also under the maintenance, right? I mean, nowadays you're not seeing it, but before a few years we used to see a message whenever you try to access some message at the odd time. They will say that the website is under maintenance. Now those are called as your maintenance windows, where the people are trying to access or trying to upgrade the application accordingly. Another example, let's say that whenever you try to upgrade your software on iOS, iPhone, would you be able to access your application phone? No, right? That normally lead to a downtime for your phone also, right? You cannot make calls while updating it. Why? Because something is updating which would not let you utilize other functionalities for sure, which might cause some problem. Now that is called as a maintenance window or a release window, we call it, whenever you try to upgrade the functionalities of your software. Hope you're clear, Hardik. Right, great. That is what it is. Now, second thing is called as your quality of the product. Now, what do you mean by quality of the product? Here is that now with Agile team, we understood that we are going with the iterative model, means every 2 weeks you are asked to deliver something. That is what it is, the sprint timeline we have it, which means that you are putting a pressure on the developer to complete within a 2 weeks completely. Or let's say that in other words, I'll say that now the client has asked me to deliver the feature this Saturday. This Saturday, whatever the release window we have it, these were asked to deliver it. Now I'm still working on the development. Until Thursday, I did not finish my development. So consider that on Thursday evening, I finished my development. Now I have only one day to deliver that into the production, right? Now, do you test it 100% in a single day? Is it possible for me to retest the whole application, all manual test cases or whatever it may be? Can I test it in a single day? Because we are not having enough time, what would you do is that normally you deliver or you test it whatever it can be possible and ensure that you deliver it because client has asked it, which means that you indirectly compromising on the quality of the product because the newly added functionality may lead to have some issues in the production for sure. May, I'm not saying 100%, right? If you are not, if it is working 100% fine, then you are successful. If that is something is failure, then everybody will come back to you and hit you and say that why it is been not tested, right? Now that is the problem, basically the quality of the product being compromised before, without testing it because of tight timeline schedules we have it sometimes. This may happen. This may happen. I'm sorry, not saying that this will happening every time. There are possibilities that this is what is happening. So what can I do it to ensure this is not happening? That is also a challenge we need to take into it, where you talk about something called as continuous testing, maybe an automation testing to automate everything possible to test the application in a faster way, right? That is another challenge team. The quality of the product is getting compromised in agile still. We want to improvise on that. Now, the third point here is called as scalability. Now, what exactly scalability means here is that, right? What exactly the scalability means here? Consider that we are talking about on-demand business nowadays, mostly on-demand business, which you mean to say that now everybody know that our Flipkart is running big billion days. Now let's see that Amazon is running, whatever the TCS they are doing it. What is happening during these 5 days, right? What's happened to that particular application during these days, right? Consider that if they have 100 users who are accessing every day to day, now today they will see 1,000 users because of the sales or whatever happening at. Now that is what is something called as a more load on the application is hitting on these specific special days, right? Now, how do I ensure that my application is stable even more number of users are accessing it, right? In simple way, I can say that if I want to access my application for 100 users, I'll deploy it on 10 servers. Means that 10 servers can accommodate 100 users can access the application easily without issues. Now the same 10 servers can handle 1,000 requests, mean 1,000 users. It's not going to be possible. The server may get hung because if you put too much stress on a server, the server will go hang or crash basically, just like your laptop crashes or just like your phone crashes when you open n number of applications on the same phone, right? That's what happens basically. So the servers are also have certain capacity to run certain number of requests or to process the request that is coming into the server always. Now the scalability here, we are talking about it. How can I do on-demand scaling, right? Because before starting the big billion day, I do not need another 90 servers. After finishing the big billion day, again, I do not need those 90 servers extra. I need only for these 5 days, right? Extra capacity is required for only these 5 days, and that is what you're thinking about. Whenever I need it, I must increase it. Whenever I don't need it, I must decrease it accordingly. So how could I achieve this scaling? Scalability is needed, right? Scalability is happening with agile, but there is something called as on-demand scaling have a lot of challenges, because how much time does it take for me to create a 90 virtual machines? How much time does it take for me to install the operating system on it? How much time does it take for me to install Java, Tomcat, and deploy my application on 90 virtual machines? Can it be done within a single hour? Is it possible for me? Definitely not possible, team. That takes a longer time, right? Creating virtual machines, ensuring that they're all accessible for the end users. It needs a lot of efforts. So on demand, it is not possible. I might have to plan upfront a 1 week before, right? That is what is something. So without utilizing, you're keeping for 90 days or another days. That is unnecessarily you're keeping the resources then. Now that is something, team, you must understand that a scalability is needed, but we are expecting more scaling or dynamic scaling possibilities. We are looking for that is not possible with your agile yet. We are still looking for a better options accordingly. Now, one last one, team, here, which is called as infrastructure readiness, is also a problem. Now, why we are saying that infrastructure readiness is that, consider that with agile, you may do it anything, Himanshu. We are talking about both. Scaling can be automatic, scaling can be manual. Both are tougher only here. It's not that if it is automatic, I'm being a faster, maybe a little bit faster, but still needs a lot of efforts to make that happen in a real time accordingly. You may do our manual scaling also. We know that manual scaling will take a longer time again for me. So both are not a possible solutions, or we're still looking for some betterment. Even it is an automatic scaling, we still need a lot of improvisation to make it stable. That is what I call it. Okay. Right. So that is what it is. And the last point here, team, is called as infrastructure readiness, which I'm talking about something. Consider that with agile team, as the developers are continuously developing the features, let's say that every 2 weeks they are adding a new feature to the software, right? Now we are not informing the teams which are running your means a production server. Consider that this is what it is. Now the developer is responsible for deploying application in development team, but there is a different teams who runs the application or who deploys application in these environments. Those teams we normally call it as operation team, right? Operation teams we call it. Now normally different deployment teams we have it accordingly. Now the development environment may be run by your dev team most of the time, right? They know that they can run it. Now consider this one team, development team did not inform, let's say that developers worked on a latest feature which would require a lot of resources on the production server. Means they have to increase the number of RAM and CPU accordingly to accommodate a new software functionalities, but they didn't inform that to the team. Once they finish the development, means after 2 weeks of development, they finish with the development, they want to deliver it to the client. Now, at that point of time, they went ahead and told to the operation team saying that, hey, we want to run this application in production for which we need this much capacity. Now, the operation team will not take that on the fly for sure. They will say that, okay, if you want to increase the capacity, it is not possible for me because that has to go through the approvals. That will take a week time for me. Okay, come back to me after a week, right? Which means that sometimes my application is ready here, but I'm not able to deliver it because my infrastructure is not ready. My servers are not ready in my production where I'm not able to deliver an application. If you talk it in general terms, team, let's say that iPhone has released iPhone 12. With iPhone 12, you have iOS 14 software. Let's say that in my hand right now, I have only iPhone 6. I say that I don't want to go for iPhone 12. I want to run my iOS 14 on my iPhone 6. Is it possible? Can I run iOS 14 on my iPhone 6? Will it function properly? What do you guys say? Will it function? No, right? Definitely not, because the software availability or the software features that are not compatible with the iPhone 6 hardware. So which means that infra is nothing but your hardware or a computer where you run a software. Now that is definitely not possible for me. So which means that is what is happening. So infrastructure may not be ready or not getting ready the same way we are actually developing an application. So that is the problem, team. You have it sometimes, not all the time. Again, sometimes the infrastructure is not getting ready. That is again a bottleneck to deliver my application into the production environment, right? Now that is another challenge. How can I bring up my on-demand resources again, right? On-demand infrastructure ready. Whenever the developer asking, I must prepare my environment ready. That is what is something we are expecting. So that is one thing team we can understand about. These are the challenges that I would normally call it. Okay. Now there is one last challenge. Most of you might be knowing this one: work with finance development, but ops problem. Now, how many of you do see this problem? Do you guys see this problem? No? Nobody? Okay, great. Let me tell you, right? What is this problem basically? Quite a time. Okay, great. Yes, great. Yes. You do see this, right? What is the problem here is that we are delivering an application basically within various environments. Most of the time, as I said, like developers are the one who run the application in development. So it works absolutely fine. Right. So here it is the QA. They develop it, they deploy it in QA, it works fine. Now pre-production it works fine, but let's say that when they deliver it to the production, that stops working. Now we immediately open a production outreach call. People would join, everybody joins the call and everybody sees that everything is good. Now we call the developer finally and he comes quickly and says that, okay, let me test it. He will test the application in development environment. It works absolutely fine there. He says, hey, it's working fine absolutely here. I don't know what's the problem with your environment. Now he'll still say that one, he will hang up and gone. Now this is where the team starts at blaming the developer. He does not give me proper instruction, proper things. The developer says that, okay, this is your infrastructure problem. You take care of it. I don't care about it. So there is a blame game that goes on going forth and this one back, right? So this is again delaying the delivery. Means at the end of the day, client is waiting for your application, but you are fighting here to making that, okay, this is your problem or my problem. Instead of achieving the goal to deliver it, we are fighting. After fighting for 2 hours, anyway you will fix it again, right? Somebody has to fix it, somebody will fix it accordingly and deliver it to the end user, right? Now that's happened, but before that you're wasting 2 hours of time. Now why would I need to, why this is happening basically? That's something you need to think about it, why this is happening. So this is what it is team, we call it about the challenges with the agile. We still have it that need to be addressed. Those things are addressed by mostly the DevOps basically, right? Now people do have a lot of questions in the mind team when we talk about the DevOps here. Now the DevOps, right? What exactly is DevOps? Is that DevOps is it a culture, or is it a job title, or is it a team, or it's a way of organizing, or a tool stack? People do think that, okay, if I have to go for DevOps, I need to learn multiple tools. That's true. That's true. But we need to understand where exactly need to use what. Now, or it's just a way of thinking. So there are many questions, team. So think about it. Or the question or the definition which I would like is this. Basically, we are talking about the major problem, which is this one, right? Which is a DevOps is a reorg, not a new team to hire. Now you know that team, we have a development team, we have an operation teams, now you have a maintenance teams, those who are working on the same project. The only problem here is that everybody is working in silos, right? It's not a new team to hire, it's not a new skill to hire basically. You have all the teams in the working already in the production, the phase, you have everything in your organization, right? You just need to group them together and say that, hey guys, this is a development team, this is the operation teams, and this is the maintenance team. You are all working on a same goal. That is, this project is your responsibility. You need to deliver this to the end user as fast as possible, as quickly as possible, as as many times as possible. You keep on continuously delivering it. That is what we need to bring in. Or we say that let's regroup them, right? Earlier everybody works in silos, nobody knows each other. Development team does not know who is the operation team, operation team does not know who is the developer team. Similarly, the maintenance folks, we don't know each other. Now that is where the blame game starts basically. If you know a person, right, at least you will stop doing that. Let's start thinking about in a different way. So you need to bring in a culture. That is the first point in which I tell it everybody, right? DevOps is first a culture, or it is a mindset that you need to bring in with everybody. Say that you're all a single team. Now this is your responsibility. The project maintenance or project development is your responsibility. So we're not asking to learn everything team, but let's say that you are responsible to maintain this project, always running or always available for the end user. Everybody have to do their own roles properly. So at the end, everything will be properly designed accordingly for you. That's what we see team. We call it as, that's why I say that reorg the thing. It's not a new team to hire everybody. Just a reorg is needed. Sit them or make them everybody on the same page. Now, if you ask me what exactly the technical definitions are, look at this one team. It is DevOps is Agile IT operation delivery. Agile IT operation delivery required to match the cadence of Agile IT development. Now we brought in the Agile in the development phase team earlier. Think about it. Agile was implemented in the development area where the developers or a QA team are joining the Scrum meetings, whatever it is, or they join the call with the client. A client interactions are happening with this development team only. But whereas operation teams were never involved in this process. Now we are telling that we want to extend the Agile into the operations phase. That's where we call it as Agile IT operations delivery. Now we understood that with Agile in the development, they achieved the speed. So we want the speed in a delivery side also. Let's extend the Agile. So we are not replacing team here. We are not replacing the the Agile. Basically, we are extending the Agile into the operations phase. That we calling it as a DevOps. Okay, that we call it as a DevOps. Basically, you must understand that. Now, in other words, if you ask me the another definition here, the DevOps is the philosophy of unifying development and operations at culture, practice, and tools level to achieve accelerated and more frequent deployment of changes to the production. Now, this is the goal team. As I told again, the goal remains same thing, but every SDLC process, you deliver the product to the end user as soon as possible. So we are also trying to achieve now. With Agile, so with Waterfall, everything was slower. With Agile, we achieved the development speed. Now with DevOps, we are thinking about making the delivery also faster, as fast as possible. That is what we're thinking about it. Now, if you ask me, team, another way, again, DevOps is a first culture. You must understand this. You must have the culture, or you must have a mindset, first of all, that you are working in a project where you have a scope of doing end to end, not your own area. Try to expand yourself and try to understand the other areas of project as well. So it is a culture of collaboration between developers and operation teams, and the culture will give the set of best practices for sure. Set of best practices for sure. That is what understanding you need to have it accordingly. Now, finally, team, a DevOps is a revolutionary movement by practitioners for practitioners. Now, just like any people who had frustrated, one of the guy who frustrated with that, he was a developer. He was asking to deliver application into the servers, and people started raising a lot of questions, why and what, how we need more time, so blah, blah. So he thought of, okay, there is a lot of gap between these guys. That is why it is not happening. Let's start with a new process. That's why they started in 2009 around. They started with DevOps, hashtag DevOps. That is what we did it. So that's from then onwards, team people started thinking about, of course, this is needed. So we want to implement it. They fully started implementing in last few years, like 2016 or so. Before that also there, but people have not noticed much. But right now it got a momentum and everybody is talking about DevOps, which essentially adding a lot of benefits to every organization. People are thinking about accordingly. Now, if you talk me the goals about the DevOps team here, the goal of the development team is to deliver the features into the hands of customer as quickly as possible. That is their goal, right? But the goal of the operation team is to maintain the stability of the system and minimize the downtime. So development having a single goal, operation having a multiple goal here. They have to get the speed, but they have to achieve the stability also, right? It doesn't mean that I ask you to run faster, so you would fall down anywhere by hitting a simple thing, right? That should not be there. You must finish the race with the stability continuously to the end point accordingly. Now that is what it is, team. The goal of the DevOps is to achieve the stability and the speed of delivery, we call it. Of course, the time to market need to be achieved. We also talk about the production failures. Means that, of course, we are expected to have a production failure for sure. That's nothing is 100% perfect in this world. So we are tend to make mistakes, we are tend to fail sometimes, and I say that it is good to fail always. You must fail. That's what I suggest. Is it in real time or in your application delivery process, doesn't matter it. With failure you will learn a lot of things. I'm saying you will do a much better things next time when you fail it. But that is what is expectation or experience, we call it, or expectation, you'll get it. Now, of course, you can fail, that is not a question, but failing multiple times the same reason is a problem, right? Failing is not a problem. Failing the same thing multiple times is a problem, I call it. Of course, you fail it again. How quickly you can bounce back is also a question. So recovery from the failures is mandatory. In a production-like environment, also, if my deployment is failure, so that should not stop my end user accessing application, at least recover it or roll back to the previous version so that end user does not see any problem. Now that is what we have to understand about it. So finally, team, we say that there is no wall in DevOps culture, which means that the developer, right, needs to know what is happening in production, how the application is running in the production. So operation team should know what developer is doing. Based on that, he must prepare the infrastructure accordingly. So all these things need, so there is no wall for sure. So you have everything is open, you roam around, you build a collaboration, you build a good relationship with the developers and everybody. You try to understand everything in well. That would definitely help you maintain your project or application stable and then deliver it faster also to the end user. That's what we called as DevOps team. That's what we called as DevOps. I'll stop it here for a minute. If you have any questions, let me know. We can discuss it. Is it a proper management between a development and operation? That's of course, Hardik. That has to be there. That is the first goal of DevOps. First you achieve that, then only you will go with the rest. So it is a culture with must follow while development, of course. While development, while operating it, while maintaining it. Everywhere you need to follow the culture 100%. You have to start very, strong, and then you will move very strong when you have a good collaboration between multiple areas. Multiple skills will give you multiple scope, multi scopes. You can understand your scope of learning is also becomes larger there, and you will have a better understanding of everything. Right, so that's great, team. So that's all about the DevOps. You have it. Now, I hope you all got what is DevOps and why DevOps is required. Now, one final thing here, team. This is also we're going to understand. So nowadays in IT, is DevOps culture implemented? That is what we are doing at all. 100% we are, or every organization is implementing DevOps. Okay, that's why we are learning DevOps. And DevOps is DevOps is something widely used, very, what do you call, a buzzword in the market right now. So everybody would like to understand this. We're not trying to understand this, why it is talking very much in the market. Okay, so coming back to this slide, team, which is also we needed. Now we understood that the goal of the DevOps is to achieve the speed of delivery. Okay, speed of the development was done in Agile itself, but we are trying to achieve the speed in the delivery process of application into the production. Along with that, we also need a stability, so we also evolving the technologies. So we want to be more faster, means that we want to be more lighter weight, which means that we need containers, we need microservices, which are very lightweight in nature. Let us move our application faster into the market. That is something. And then we also have a cloud nowadays in the market. Now we are becoming lazy day by day. We want everything to be served at our plate, right? That is what is something. So initial days, we have to build our own stuff to run our own applications. Later, somebody started renting you some servers. Now we are even lazy now to go to a hotel and order a meal. Now we are sitting at our home and we are opening a Swiggy and we are doing orders. So some service provider like Swiggy is delivering your things accordingly for you, right? As simple as that, you are doing, or you're becoming lazy every day by day. I don't say that lazy, but we are improvising on the technology side, right? So we have here, right, a cloud is nothing but you are getting everything at your fingertips. You can sit at your home, you can request your infrastructure to be ready. Service provider will prepare the infrastructure with all the capacity that you needed. He will just say that your infrastructure is ready, you start running your application. So that's it, game over. So you do not need to move anywhere. You just need a stable internet connection to make sure everything is happening properly. That is what is cloud team. A cloud is also a pay as you go model here. So which means you pay for what you use, with which you will again save a lot of money for your organization accordingly. So that is cloud team, which is very much important to make you get the results of DevOps. Without a cloud, also you can achieve it, but you might get it a little bit slower. Cloud will enable the immediate results, right? And then rest everything without a cloud also you will achieve it, but that will take certain amount of time. You need to invest in time. Later you will see the results slowly, maybe after 1 or 2 years. That is what is. But if you are worried about I need the results immediately, start using the cloud, which will eventually give you the immediate results on your project. That is what is expected. Okay, the cloud is mandatory. You must use any cloud to ensure you get the immediate results. That's what we said. So with this approach, I feel one person ends up doing too many things like setting up the environments plus development. No, Sanjay, no, Sanjay, not really. I'll make that point clear for you. Just hold on for some time. So definitely one person cannot swim 7 oceans. That is not possible for one person to do it. We need help of the people, definitely. So you will have your own things. We have a segregated roles and responsibilities, but you have a scope of looking at multiple things. Okay, it doesn't mean that you have to do everything. Okay, it doesn't mean you can, you do everything here. You just need, or you just have a scope of understanding end to end, and then support wherever it's necessary, or help reach the people accordingly. That's what we call it. I'll come to that point again, but let's hold on for some time. So coming back to here in the slide, we talk about containers. People are very much interested in containers. I hope most of you are also, uh, you know, uh, very much interested in container. Can somebody give me the containers definition if you know it already? I'm not sure if you're hearing it for the first time also, right? So if you're hearing for the first time, team, consider that this is what is a container definition, right? So try to understand, team. If I want to run my application, I said like I need a runtime environment such as Tomcat, Java, and OS, right? Now these are the dependencies, team, that I need to run it on every server, on every environment before I deploy my application. Like you need to install the VLC player before you run your movie. I need VLC to be installed, then only I can play a movie. Similarly, before I deploy my web application, I need to have this environment such as web server to be running on my system, right? Now consider that production is like 500 servers. On all 500 servers, I must install Java, I must install Tomcat, and I must deploy my application. Now this is where, team, whenever we're delivering an application, we are failing sometime because a lot of dependencies are maintained separately on every server. One box with all the app dependencies in it. Great definition, Sanjay. Okay, that's correct. But how are we doing it? It's not a box, a container. That's okay. You can call it as a general box. That's okay. Now, as I'm talking about the dependencies here, team, the dependencies are very much important, with which we are actually facing the problem of working in development, not working in the production, such as developer asks you to copy something, you forgot to copy. A developer forgot to mention something, you still just give the application code only, you just deploy the application code, it is not working, right? Now, those are the dependencies. So what exactly we're doing in this model, team, we are not worried about other standard other dependencies. We just delivering only the application code, whereas the rest everything is maintained static or deployed separately on every server where you want to run the application, right? Now we are delivering only the application code, team. Like app is the code here, that is what I'm delivering it across all the environments. That is actually making the trouble of working fine in dev, not working in the production, because a lot of dependencies are not carried with your application. They are all deployed separately or hosted separately, again on every server. Consider that in my production also, if I have 500 server, I deployed successfully on 490. On 10 servers, I forgot to deploy it. Now that's where it stops. It starts troubling me with application. So this is what is same thing you must understand about it, right? So how do I containerize my application is that, right? Consider that we are talking about a container which has an application, right? Which has an application basically plus all of its dependencies packaged together. Consider that this is what I'm doing it, right? Inside which I'm running or I'm putting my application, I'm putting Tomcat, I'm putting Java, I'm putting OS library, whatever is needed my application. Plus, I'm also running if there are any dependencies required. So I'm packaging everything into a single bundle, right? Now, instead of delivering these things, means instead of hosting all these things unnecessarily separately everywhere, like spilling over everything separately on every server, that may lead to inconsistency of configurations across various servers for sure. Now I just have a server with an operating system installed, then I can deliver this particular application, right? Now I deliver this as a whole package, I'll deploy it here, right? Now if this is working here, I will deliver it here. If this is working here, I'll deliver it here. If this is working, and finally I'll put it in my production, which means that we will be able to achieve the consistency of my application environment across various servers. So with which we are saying that the application would definitely work fine in development. If it is working in development, I can guarantee that that would work in production also, so that we are eliminating that particular problem we had, which was working in fine in dev, not working in production. So with which we will be able to resolve that particular issue and bring the consistency of application delivery into multiple environments. I hope you all agree, right? If I do this kind of a delivery, I can guarantee that my application would work same in all environments. That's what is the understanding team. So this package, we call it as a container. In simple words, application plus all of its dependencies packaged together is called your container, right? How do I build this container? How do I run this container? Basically, that's where we need a tool basically. So we talk about Docker is called as containerization tool. So which will help me build the containers and run the containers wherever I want. So Docker comes up with a build slogan, which is called as build, ship, run. So you can build anywhere, you can ship anywhere, and you can run anywhere because you're not dependent on anything on a server. Basically, you just are having every dependent component inside your container only. So I could deliver it anywhere, I could run it anywhere. So shipping between the cloud or data centers or data center to cloud becomes a lot easier for me with the containerization, we call it, right? Now this is where we talk about containers have become very much popular in the market, right? And they are being adopted by the every organization now, again, to make the delivery faster. Because if I want to deliver it, I need a stability also. If you want to achieve the stability, containers are a way to achieve a stability with a speed. Basically, that's what we understand here. So this is about the container definition team. I hope you all understood now what exactly is a container, right? Just for a definition side, we can do it. So we create an image for our application and store it as a container, and the application can be accessed from anywhere. Okay. Okay, that's good, Atul. The package which I'm preparing here can be called as an image, right? This is like an image now, like a blueprint, I call it. You have original copy from which you make Xerox copies and run them or utilize them or give them wherever they want it. Similarly, you have this as a blueprint from which you can make the copies. That copies are called as your containers again, in simple words, so that people can start accessing application from the copies of a package that you always created. Technically, this is Docker image and that is a Docker container. So we will talk about more on this one in the Docker session, but this is where you just understand the definition of container like this. It is also known as an image in technical terminology. So environment setup for the container will be common for all. Yes, no environment setup right here. The only thing that you need is that, as I said, like in order to build or run, I need a Docker. So I would just need a machine with a Docker installed on every environment. Now this is a common, looks like it's like a particular machine, you have some software in, that's all. So this is what you will have across all the different environments are there. That's the only thing you can understand about it. This is the common environment that you see it for every application container to run it without any issues on every different environments, different servers. It doesn't matter about it. Okay. So I hope you're all clear on the container definition now. So considering that you're all good, any questions? Okay, great. So let's move ahead and try to understand a term called as microservices. Not sure if if you are somebody as developer, if you're already aware about a microservice, but let me explain it in a simple words again here. Let's go with this, right? So here it is, team. Considering that I'm talking about a microservice now, what exactly is micro? Now, as we already understanding, it is a micro in the name, which means that we are further reducing the footprint of our application code. How? Right? This is also known as something a loosely coupled architecture, right? Loosely coupled architecture we call. So what do you mean by loosely coupled architecture? How does it helping me deliver my application again in a faster way? Now consider example team, I told you a banking application here. Consider that there are a default functionalities of my banking application. Like whenever you access an internet banking application, you see a login page. Once after you log in, you see a credit cards, you see a debit card section, right? You see a loan section, you see a mutual fund, which means that team, all these functionalities of the application are bundled into a single package and you deployed on a single server, right? So there are multiple functionalities. I have it like this. Everything is a single application code. I put it on a single server. Now think about a situation here. Consider that there are 100 customers who are accessing my application, right? Who are accessing my application. Out of those 100 customers, 90 customers are using the debit card, right? Debit card transactions or debit card statement, they are looking at it. Out of them, 10 customers are looking at my credit card statement. That is what is something, right? The ratio is 90 to 10 accordingly. That's what is, but end of the day, they are all the clients for me, right? Now, considering that scenario team here, all of a sudden the credit card statement stopped working, means credit card statements are not getting loaded, whereas debit card is absolutely fine without any issues, it's working. Now considering this is the scenario team, the bank has identified, or you reported the issue to the bank and bank identified the issue, they take to the development, they fix the code whatever is needed, and then they want to deliver this fix into the production now. Now, how do they deliver it? Can they deliver only the credit card fix, or can they deliver all the, means do they have to bring down the entire application and redeliver or redeploy the whole application? What happens here? Do they redeploy the whole application, which will lead the downtime for the debit card users also? I believe that's what happens, right? Agree or not, team? That's what it is, right? So that's how it happens, team. So which means that just to deliver the fix in the credit card code, I have to give a downtime for the debit card, loans, whatever it is, the entire application need to be redeployed, right? Then only the credit card issue will be fixed out. That is what something you must understand. So unnecessarily, we are giving a downtime for the other users who are not being affected with the issue we had in the application. So how do I fix this? So that is why team we started discussing about the microservices with which we are further loosely coupling. Means that instead of delivering a single application, let's develop each functionality as a separate application itself. Let's say that login called as login application, debit card application, credit card application, I call it a loan app, right? And let's say that you have a mutual fund application like this. So you are developing every functionality to be a separate application. So which will let me host or run this application separately on a server, right? It can be running on a same server or it can be running on different server also. Consider that I put it here Tomcat. Now the debit card is also I'm running on Tomcat only, but let's say that a credit card can be running in JBoss, right? This one can run in Apache, right? And this one can run in some other some other application server accordingly, right? Now, this is how team you have a flexibility of deploying an application into a different technology or hosting the application separately, right? First of all, you get an advantage of using multiple technologies, so with which you do not need to depend on single programming language as well. You may develop credit card in .NET, and then the debit card in Java, and then you see that the login application in Python. So maybe you can use any technology as you wish it. That is again a flexibility that you gain it, right? Now this is where team think about this situation. Now if I have an application or credit card issue, I'll just bring down this particular service only, right? Only the credit card section will be not functional in my application. The end user team does not see any difference in accessing the application. Still he will log in, still he will see every functionality will be appearing as it is. But in the back end, the services are hosted separately, right? That is what the understanding that you need to have it, so that you have a flexibility of delivering that particular piece without giving any downtime to the end user. Means the rest of the users are not seeing any downtime except the one which have an issue, right? Thus you are improving the client experience. Definitely you are able to deliver an application, or you're able to run the application without any issues most of the time. That will also let me deliver this piece much faster. Means the more lightweight you are, the lesser time to you take to the lesser time you take to come up accordingly. That is what something you must understand it. This is how you made it more simpler. The microservices enable us to deliver application faster. Being a lightweight, they move faster, we can troubleshoot easily, right? You can have a flexibility of running different technologies accordingly together. So they will all have multiple advantages around it. So you can go with that architecture according. Now that's why people have started using this, or in the DevOps world, we talk about microservices. You talk about containers to host the microservices. They are the best suit to bring the stability for the multiple microservices running across different systems again, right? Now the cloud will give you the infrastructure needed to run the microservices and containers immediately to make it delivery faster again. Now this is the understanding team that you must have it about the DevOps. So I hope everybody understood about the DevOps now, what exactly it is. So considering the scenario here again, this is what I call it, right? With waterfall, right? So microservices are just to break the whole app into small pieces. That's absolutely correct, Pandit. That's all about. So whenever I'm talking about microservices, break your application into smaller pieces and run them separately. Yet in the front end, people would see as a single application. You build the connectivity between them to act as a single system again. Break it and then make sure that runs as a single system again in the front. Yes, that's correct. Okay, great. So moving here, team, again, last words here with the DevOps. With waterfall, we had once we used to deliver in 6 months. With Agile, we deliver the application once in 2 months. Now with the DevOps, we are trying to deliver an application whenever it is ready. So do not wait for the development, or do not wait for the release window. You have to deliver it immediately as soon as it is ready. How you do it, how you automate it, how to ensure that your application deployed into the production. You need to take all the necessary precautions, do the automation wherever possible, do the automations wherever possible to improve the speed accordingly and improve the stability part also, right? And ensure the application getting delivered into the production. So that's what it is, team. It's not only module-wise implementation, Atul. It can be multiple microservices within the same module also, right? Consider that within the debit card module, I have debit card statement separate, debit card transaction separate. You have multiple debit card, just like you update your debit card pin and everything, that is a separate service. So you have multiple smaller microservice within the same module also. You can break into another multiple microservices again, right? There is a possibility of that also will be there. It's not only about module wise. Think about whatever the smaller piece that you can make that smaller pieces accordingly. Okay, Now, thinking about the DevOps team again, why DevOps? So all organizations today are working too hard to respond better around changing market needs. So we are in a dynamic world right now. The market needs are changing day by day. So you have to be up to date with the DevOps, and you have to up to date with the market always to achieve this point. So DevOps practices will let you to be up to date with the market, adopt the dynamic requirements needed by the developer, the end users always. So that's where we are talking about DevOps again. So all the organizations started implementing DevOps, hiring DevOps engineer. Don't confuse the name. So they will be hiring the normal people only, like developers, QA, middleware administrators, database administrator. Everybody have their own role, safely team still. Only thing is that they named it as a DevOps engineer. That's the only thing. Okay. Don't think that DevOps engineer will have a special skill here. There is nothing like that. So you are also called as a DevOps engineer if you're already working in the DevOps team, right? If you are a developer, of course you are a developer. You will be doing the development only. Consider that that's what you do it. Okay, the primary skill. Now earlier we had only one skill. If I know one technology, I was able to survive in the IT industry. But right now with the DevOps model, we see that you will have a primary skill. If you are already a developer, so your primary role is to develop an application. That is your primary. But let's say that you also need to have a knowledge of, I'm not saying you must do the operation, you must learn how to deploy application. No, you have to know what is happening on the other end. Don't say that that is not my area, I will not look into it. So you have to understand what's happening, what they are doing it. So try to explore the things, right? Maybe if you like it, you may move on to that side. You may change the roles also, but you will have a primary role. If I'm a middleware engineer, let's say that if I'm the operation team where I'm responsible for my database administration, yes, my primary responsibility still will be my database administration only. Now I'm responsible for maintaining the databases, I'm responsible for setting up databases, that I'll be taking care, but I should not restrict myself to the database only. If you have a scope of learning other areas, just start learning it, right? That is what we call it as a DevOps engineer, we say it. So as a DevOps engineer, you should be open to know the things first of all and make your primary skill one thing. And you must have a secondary skill as well. That is what is also expected. You choose what is your secondary skill. Again, don't do end to end. That is not possible. Even I can't do that end to end. That is not possible for me, right? So we are expected to know few things. So try to know the few things. Keep your primary skill as it is, and then try to know the other things which will help you accommodate application stability. Means that, let's say I'm a middleware engineer, that I'm responsible for hosting my application on a Tomcat server. Now all of a sudden I see an alert in my email box where the database is not running. Now, in earlier days, what we used to say is that, okay, this is not my issue, leave it, right? The database folks will look into, they will fix it. Now, that is not your responsibility. Now we see that, oh, it's a database issue, which is causing my application instability, or end user may have issues. So let me involve the database team, because you know who is the database team now, because we asked you to bring in a culture, first of all, where everybody should know everybody, first of all. So now your responsibility, don't leave that alert behind as it is and you do your work. No, you have to involve the right people to resolve it immediately. So you will bring the stability and high availability for your application. That is what is expected as a DevOps engineer from you. Okay, we're not asking you to go and fix the database problem, but at least involve the right people to make your application back to normal and functional, right? That's what we call it as a DevOps team or a DevOps engineer. Primary responsibility is to collaborate between multiple team members, multiple areas of people, so that all team members together will achieve the goal. That is what is something you must understand. So just for your understanding, so the certification from the DevOps University is accepted by the major MNCs, and all of them like Accenture, IBM, Infosys, Oracle, everybody will accept this certification path. So please concentrate on writing the certification also, which will be very helpful for you guys as a DevOps engineers. Now, this is just an introduction to DevOps team. I hope you all have some clarity now. What exactly is DevOps, or what are we trying to achieve with the DevOps model? If you have any questions, let me know. We can discuss them. So what is exact responsibility if a company hires a DevOps engineer? Will he be involved in a proper management or a team so that delivery of the product is in speed? Okay, so if let's say that when they are posting a DevOps engineer role, Hardik, try to understand, they are not saying that you have to know everything, right? They will describe the roles and responsibility of a DevOps engineer. Let's say that they started describing about a developer, means I am looking for this skill in you as a DevOps engineer. So where they will put the skill accordingly, right? So now also you will go to the any Naukri portal and try to look at the DevOps engineer profiles where they will have some kind of expectations, right? Okay, the engineer who was trying to do, you should know this. So you should portray yourself in a way that yes, I can do this as my primary, and I know the rest of the stuff. So which means that I can implement them, but I'm not done yet, or you can convince them accordingly. That's what is an expectation from you, right? So as a DevOps engineer, you have a primary skill. Concentrate on the primary skill first of all. Consider that you are as a database administrator. This is what it is. Earlier we used to call you as a database administrator, but we are now calling you as a DevOps engineer only. Like everybody in the project is a DevOps engineer from end to end, but you have a primary skill, correct? Primary skill, we have it. If you have it, so that's great. So DevOps engineer, that's what you see it. You have a primary skill, you have to this one. What is the difference between a DevOps engineer and a full stack developer? Okay, a DevOps engineer may not do the development basically, but a developer also can call as a DevOps engineer, but a developer or DevOps engineer may not be a developer or may not do a development always. That is not mandatory. So DevOps engineer roles and responsibilities are starting from once a development is completed most of the time. So where you will take the code, you will start putting the code and making that deploying into various environments, maintain the environments, maintain the application in production. These are the primary responsibilities which are expected from a DevOps engineer, right? Now, what is a full stack developer here, right? A full stack developer is that earlier the developers used to know only one technology. Like it's that they used to say that I'm a Java developer, right? Means that if you know Java, you can get a job. That's fine. That is what is expectation from a developer. Now, as I told here, something on the microservices, right? So let's say that I'm talking about a microservice here, as I told it, right? So we are expecting, or let's say that I say that a login app is developed in Java, credit card application is developed in Python, and the loan application developed in .NET. So earlier days, if you know one technology, you will write a whole application in a single technology only, right? That's how the projects used to be. Now, because of the microservices architecture, people have exploring about multiple technologies. So as a developer, if they are hiring you, they might ask you to develop a piece of code in a .NET, other piece of code in a Java, other piece of code in a Python, right? Now that's where you must be aware of multiple programming languages. So that is what is called as a full stack developer. So as a full stack developer, they must know how to develop an application into multiple different languages. Earlier, one language used to be good enough, but right now they're expecting more. So people should know multiple technologies, multiple programming languages to develop an application or to develop a microservice for you. That's what is the difference, Hardik. I hope you got it. So as a DevOps engineer practice, do we need to focus more on coding? Not at all required at all. So no, you do not need a coding. Okay, there is a lot thing other than coding. You can concentrate on other things other than coding. That should be fine. Is there any specific application structure is required for DevOps? What do you mean by application structure here? You may follow anything as you wish it, Hemant. Sorry, Hanmant, I believe that's what you can do. So if there is any bug in any project, so DevOps person will find out a proper solution and who will solve it. The respective person. See, if you are identifying a issue, as I told it, you identified an issue happening on the database side. So you would involve the database person who is responsible to resolve the issue, right? Because I know the database, I don't know the database administration. I cannot definitely do it. So you would have to involve the right people so that you will minimize the downtime for your application at least. That's what is the main focus here. Try to understand, Hardik, right? Who will deploy it again? If there is a development issue, you involve the developer. If it is a database issue, you involve the developer. If it is your area like middleware, something if you're working on, you have to resolve the issue. But do a collaboration. Collaboration is very much important here. Right? If DevOps person is involved. So in short, blame game is reduced. That's what you can see it, Hardik. That's what I'm saying. You must not blame anyone again now. Don't do the blaming at all in DevOps. That's what it is. So it is also possible to build UI in different technology using a microservices. Yes, that is possible, Himanshu. That is possible. See, whatever you want to choose it, you choose it. That is possible. And then that is the technology evolving like that. Multiple technologies are collaborating each other to make your application work. Okay, so this is just an understanding team. Hope you all have understood now what exactly is DevOps and everything, right? So with that being a tool team, I believe we will be jumping on to a quick thing here. So hope everybody is clear. Now here team, let's try to understand now. As a tool team, we will be working various aspects of the project. Consider that starting from the development side till the production side, wherever you have it. Consider that. So the tools and technologies team that we will be discussing in our session, maybe next 4 days, not today, but next 4 days, which is around 8 to 10 hours, we have it. So within the 10 hours team, we'll be covering end to end just to show you a demonstration how the tools work together to ensure we achieve the goals. So we'll start from the basic thing, which is from the development end, where you will be seeing the version control system as Git. In short, team, we are not going to deep dive of any technology here. We will give you what is this technology, why you should know this technology, at least in brief, not into the depth level. Some technology you will be mastering, like I said, like your database, you will administer a database administration, it can be mastered it. But other technologies just have an idea. That is what it is. So Git or GitHub will be talking about here in short. Now after that, we will be talking about build tools such as Maven. Now we'll talk about build automation. What are all these words? Again, I'll be talking about it, but let's say top level. I'm just listing the tools right now that I'm going to use it. We will be using in our session. Build automation, we'll be using Jenkins. In other words, we call this as CI/CD process to build a CI/CD pipeline, right? CI/CD pipeline can be created using Jenkins server, right? Now, apart from that, we will be, touching on the containerization. So we'll be talking about containerization. We'll be talking about Docker, how to build the containers and everything. And apart from that, we also going to talk about container orchestration, right? Now we'll be learning the Docker Swarm mainly, but we'll also touch base with the Kubernetes here. Touch base only, not getting into anything there. Just a touch base on the Kubernetes, how it is different from the Docker Swarm and how it can be done. Apart from that one, we will be talking about the infrastructure automation, which is configuration management, where I'll be talking about Ansible. This is the tool that will be touching it. Now, apart from this one, we'll be talking about monitoring, right? Monitoring, we'll be talking about something called as Nagios. Now we'll be talking about something called as logging. We'll be talking about Splunk. So these are the tools and technologies team. Almost 10 tools you have it here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right? 8 tools you have a team. So we'll be sending around 10 hours on is 8 tools. So think about how much we'll be doing it. Maybe 1 hour, 1.5 hour for each tool. So we'll understand about whatever is necessary, how the tool works, how we can utilize them, right? So this is just an understanding team. This is just a foundation. So you will have a better understanding by the end of the course. you will understand the things how they can be implemented accordingly. So this is the tool set team. This is the tools and technologies that we will be touching from tomorrow. But before this, if I want to implement any of these things again, we will need a server here. So for example, how do I create Ubuntu team? We're going to take a practice everything on Ubuntu basically, right? Ubuntu server. This is a Linux. I'm pretty sure that most of you have your basic Linux team. If you do not have a basic Linux, that will going to be a trouble for you. I would recommend everybody to go with the basic Linux commands if you're not already aware of it, right? I'm giving a link here where you will have a lot of content of our course, right? I'm sending a link team. Please do look at that. Now in this link, as you can see it on my screen, you have something called as a Linux folder in which we have kept some basic Linux commands that you could practice it, right? So please go through with this basic Linux commands if you're not already aware of it. If you are already aware of it, keep it as it is. That's good enough for you. Now I think under your LMS portal also you have a basic Linux program, so Linux Foundation basically, so where you have a couple of videos on which we'll be explaining how to work on the Linux servers. So please go through those videos also if you have not gone through already. If it is required for you, if you're comfortable with Linux, you don't need to go through them. If you are not comfortable with it, please do go through with those videos as well as the commands, practice it, so which is mandatory to work with any of the DevOps tool that we discussed. Linux is mandatory here. Without Linux, you cannot do anything. So that is what I'm saying it. Now we need a Linux server here. Now this is where we, from where can I get this, right? From where we can get this team again. If you go to this particular thing, so there is a folder called as cloud. So under the link which I shared just now, hope everybody is able to access it. There is a folder called as cloud here. Under that, we have set up the setup guides. Not sure if you all received this earlier, if you have set up this earlier, not sure. But consider that you can set up an account in AWS. It is Amazon Web Services Cloud, AWS Cloud we call it, right? So we have given a clear guide with all the instruction, with all the screenshots. Let me show you that document for you quickly. So here it is here, right? Now you have the same document available there, team. We have given you the necessary things here with all the screenshots, how to create your AWS account and how do I create a server on your or Linux server on your AWS cloud. I have given clearly instruction everything here. So please go through this document, or before you going through this, I'll be going through right now how to create a server. Maybe you can set it up by tomorrow mostly, right? You can set up your free tier account so you can be ready with your server so you can practice it. So, and again, I would not suggest you to practice along with me in the session, but definitely you can follow me in the session, and then later the session you can follow the video. We'll be giving you all the necessary commands written, documented. You do not need to make a screenshot, you don't need to make note down everything. So we have already predefined structures, predefined materials, everything is in place. You just need to follow the materials for installations or practicing everything. You can definitely get the material, so please try to follow me in the session so that you will be able to understand and practice the tools accordingly. So that's just the information for you guys. Hope everybody is able to open the link, right? Does anybody have issue in opening the link and downloading this one? Click on the AWS Setup EC2 document and there is a download button here. Please click on the download button so it will download that document onto your system and you can follow that accordingly. How many of you are ready with your accounts already? Have anybody created before this one or not done? Anybody have done? No? Okay, so great team, not a problem. So please go through the document and you can do it yourself. But right now, team, please follow me what I'll be guiding you through to create an EC2 instance right now, which is called as an Ubuntu server that I'm going to create it in my AWS account. Okay, so this is my AWS account team. Once after you log in, once you create a free tier account, once after you log in, you will be seeing this screen, right? What you're seeing it on my screen right now. This is what is you seeing it, AWS Management Console, and under which you will be seeing there is a services tab on the top left corner beside to AWS logo. Now, if you click on that, you will be seeing various services which are offered by the AWS cloud. So in which team we are interested in getting a server, a Linux server with some capacity, like some CPU, some RAM for that. So we will be doing this one team here. Go to the compute section, right? Under that, you will see something called as EC2. Now EC2 is nothing but Elastic Compute Cloud, we call it. So click on this particular link. Now it will take you to the next page. Now where you will be seeing something called as EC2 dashboard. On the left hand side there is a menu and there are many options that you have it here, right? Now if I want to create a server team, I'll just click on launch instance. Okay, that is one thing you to get it. Now before we launch instance team, there is one setting that you need to do it, that is mandatory setting. So please do it carefully as I do it later watching the video. So here it is under the left hand side menu, scroll bar down. If you go to the bottom team, there is something called as network and security. Now under the network and security, you see something called as security groups. So click on the security groups here, right? Now under this one, you can go ahead and create a security group. By default, you might see only default, but I have multiple things here. By default, you might see only one thing, which is a default. So I'll create a new security group team here, which is mandatory. Create a new security group, right? It will take you to the next page where you can enter some text. Let's say that a DU demo, I call it. Now under the DU demo here, maybe put the description, whatever the description you want it. And now that's all you need to do it. If you come a little bit below, there is something called as inbound roles. Okay. Now here team, add a rule first of all, right? And there will be a drop down. The column, first column will be type. Under that, there will be a drop down. If you open that, there is something called as all traffic. So you must choose all traffic here. Now under the fourth column, there is a source section. You have it. You need to drop down there and then choose anywhere. That is something you need to do it. And we will add another rule also here. Add rule again. It will give you the second column, second row here with the different settings again. Again, you do a drop down. This time you will need to select SSH basically. Select an SSH option. Now under the same again source column, right? Go to there and then choose anywhere. Now these are the two steps that you must do it before you create any instance. Ensure that you do it. Give a name, add two inbound rules, and don't modify anything on the outbound. Leave it as it is. And then we will create a security group here. Now, when you create a security group, it will take you to this page again, where it will just give you a quick overview of your security group that you created, the name of it, the owner of it, the security ID. Below, you will see the inbound rules, where you must see that clearly like this. And outbound rules, you don't need to worry. That's all. That's the default one. That's all you have. Now, this is what you see, team. This is how a you would create a basic things according. Now, this is once you created it, and on the left side menu again, right? That is a first setting which you do it, which is called as security groups. Now, the second thing is again, let's say that under the network and security itself, let's go to something called as key pairs. Now, I'll talk about what are these key pairs as well, but let's say that click on a key pair. Right here, you must create a new key pair again. If you have already not there, you may not see anything if you don't have it, but you will have an option of create a key pair. Click on create a key pair here and enter a name called as DU demo. Whatever the name you want to enter it again, you can enter it. But let's say that this is what I'm giving it. Now here team, here it has an option called as file format, which is a PEM file or a PPK file. You have it. Right now, this is where team you can download a PEM file. That will be easy for us to do it. Let's see that. Go with the PEM file, right? And then create a key pair here, right? Once you create a key pair team, it will download the file onto your system. Watch it very carefully here. if I'll to go to the downloads page, you will see that there is a du demo.pem file that gets downloaded onto your system. Ensure that this is downloaded, which is very much important for you. Go to the downloads and validate the file is available, right? Which is available for me. Great. Now, once you have created this, come back to this one, right? Now you have all the things necessary done, team. Now I'll go back on the left side menu and click on the EC2 dashboard on the top. Click on it. Now you will be given or coming back to this particular page where you will see a launch instance tab again, right? Now here team, now you need to click on the launch instance. Before you go to launch instance, under the security, network and security, you must create a security group, update the proper rules. You must create a key pair, download the PEM file accordingly, right? Now after this one team, you can go with the launch instance, click on launch instance. It will take you to the next page where it will offer you to create various types of operating systems. Now we are interested in Ubuntu only. Ubuntu Linux team, that is what we're going to practice through all the sessions. So I would recommend everybody, I would suggest everybody to go with Ubuntu. On the search bar, you can type Ubuntu and search for it. You will be listed many things here. Now the second option team here, which is Ubuntu 18.04 LTS, and I want everybody to go with this only, right? Because the instruction that we'll be giving you working with Ubuntu 18.04 without any issues. If you change anything else, that might not work properly. So please be aware of that. So better that you follow the same things to have no issues while you're doing a lab. So here it is, and ensure that it is a free tier eligible only, then only you will not be charged. Select it. It will take you to the next page where it will show you the server capacity that you're gonna get it for free, which is a 1 CPU and then 1 GB RAM. That is good enough for us, good enough for us again to practice our labs. That should be good. And ensure that you select only the free tier one here as well. If you choose any other capacity, you will be charged. So please be careful about it. Don't review and launch. Go to the next page here. Now where it will showing you how many number of instances you wanted. When I say instance, how many number of servers do you want it? Right now we need only one, so keep it as it is one, and rest everything is default. Please leave it as default. Do not modify anything. And the next, add storage. Now here it is giving you by default hard disk capacity, which is 8 GB, again, which is good enough for us, need not to modify anything. Again, if you try to increase it here, that will unnecessarily will charge you. So please keep it the minimum and the default as it is. So next is tags. Nothing need to be modified here, just avoid it. Now next is configure a security group. This is very much important theme here. Please do not create, because it's asking you to by default create a new security group here. Do not do that because we already created a security group. So instead select an existing security group. Now it will list the one which you have it in your account. So select the one which you created, which is a DU demo, which I did it just now. So let's create that, right? And you will see the necessary things, and you can see that review and launch. I'll give you a warning here. Forget about the warning. That should be fine for us. Now it will give you just that you can review the settings one more time. And at the bottom, you have something called as launch. Now, when I say launch here, team, it will ask you to select an existing key pair, right? It will asking you to select an existing key pair or create a new key pair here. Now we already created a key pair, team. Just now I showed you how to create a key pair, which is a PEM file, right? Now instead here you have something called as choose an existing key pair, because we already created it, must be existing now. If you want to create a new one, you select here, but once we created it already there, we just choose an existing one. From the drop down, you choose your key pair that you created again, so which is a DU demo, which I created. Ensure that you select it properly and then say that acknowledge, and then say review and launch here. Now, when you say review and launch, team, it is going to create your server, right? And then it will be starting your server accordingly. In my things team, there is another server which is already there, which is in a stopped state, right? Like you shut down the server, so I shut down this EC2 instance accordingly. Now the new one which is getting created here, consider that if you wait for a minute, this will be getting ready. Means that you have your server ready right now. You have your server ready right now. That is what it is, which means that I can log into this particular server. Now consider this one team, whenever you want to log in to a remote server, right? To log in to a remote Linux server. Why I called as remote team here? Because my laptop is my local, my Windows is my local basically. Consider that anything apart from my Windows, everything is a remote server for me. Remote in the sense that is running somewhere in AWS data center, and I'm trying to connect to that server using the internet, right? So that is why we call it as a remote server. Now, in order to connect to a remote Linux server team, we always need three details, which is IP address of that particular machine, right? IP address of that particular server always, and we need a username and we need a password. This is mandatory details whenever you try to connect to any remote Linux server or remote Windows server. Doesn't matter, these are the three details which is required. Now the IP address team, and we are connecting over the internet. We are connecting over the internet because AWS and everything is accessible over the internet for me. Whenever I try to access something over the internet team, there is a second column at the bottom. You select your server, there is a details about the server at the bottom, right? Under the details section, you will see a second column which is a public IPv4 address. Whenever you think that you're connecting over the internet, so you must use a public IP address only. So I copy this and I'll paste it here just for your understanding. This is my IP address of that particular machine. Now I have a username team. By default, AWS provides the default username, which is Ubuntu. For Ubuntu server, Ubuntu Linux machine, which I given. This one is given from the AWS documentation. So they are given a default user called as your Ubuntu as a name. Now the password team is nothing but the key file that you downloaded, which is by default, the servers on a cloud does not accept the passwords. Instead, they are enabled with a key, right? That the key that you downloaded, which is du-demo.pem file, is nothing but your password here. So you must use these three things to connect to the server. Now, in order to connect to this server team again, we need a client. Consider that facebook.com is an application. You are using the browser as a client to send a request into the server, and you are getting the response in the browser accordingly. That is like you send a request to the server, server responds to you accordingly. Now this is also a remote server. I must send a request to connect to it or log into it basically. So I need a client here as well team. Now we cannot use a browser to connect it, but we need a special clients, or in order to connect to a remote servers, right? To connect to a remote Linux server, we need a client, right? Client that will help me connect to it. That client, we call it as SSH client. Now there are many SSH clients in the market. The famous ones are PuTTY, right? Mobile Extern, you have it, right? You have Secure CRT. So there are many tools team in the market to connect to a remote Linux server. Now, out of which I would give you a easiest one that will be very easy for you to install it on your things. Now, if you are using a Mac team, this is only for the Windows I'm talking about right now. Windows users only, right? If you are using your Mac team, if you have a Mac laptop with you, you do not need this client at all, because your Mac terminal acts as a SSH client by default. You can use your terminal. Now, once you have this terminal, the command will be like this: ssh-i, whatever the PEM file I had it, du-demo.pem, right? Ubuntu at IP address. This is what it is, which I mean to say, the IP address need to be replaced with this one, right? Consider that this is the command which I need to run it from the client utility, whether it can be your Mac terminal, right, or the Windows users. you have to install any of this one on your system. So let me show you team. I'll go with the mobile extern, which is a very simpler one. So let's go with this, right? So you go to download team or Google, and let's say that download mobile extern for Windows, right? Go to the second page here team, which is this one, the downloads page. Now this will take you to the next page where you see a home edition as well as a professional. We need a home edition, that is good enough for us. Click on the download, right? So here it is. It will take you to the next page where it will pop up with the two different options. One is a portable edition, one is an installer edition. Now this is better to go with the portable edition, so you can simply download this portable edition. So click on this portable edition team. It will download a zip file onto your system, right? That will download the software or a mobile extern software onto your server. So it will just download some exe file team. You do not need to install it. You just need to run it. That's all you're gonna do it. So here it is team. So we are almost done. Let it finish the download. And then once that is done, I will show you how to do it. So I hope everybody is clear up till this point team. If you have any questions, please do post it. We can look at it. Meanwhile, it is doing it. Just give me another 5 minutes team. We'll be done mostly. So here we go team. We are almost done. Okay, so consider that this is downloaded team. Once you download it, the zip file that should be available under your downloads. So here it is team, the zip file is available here for me. Now what you need to do is that just extract it, right? That's all you do it. Now open this one, you will see that there is a .exe file that will be there, right? You just need to run this particular .exe team. When you run this one, the .exe, it will just open this terminal for you, right? This is what it will open up, mobile xterm and this one. Now you can just say that start a local terminal here. That's all you do it. Now when you click on this, it will open up this window for you. Means that here team, this will almost act as this one, but consider that this is the terminal that you would be seeing it, kind of a command prompt terminal, right? So here team, you must go to the folder where your PEM file is present, right? Here under the downloads team, go to the location, right, where your PEM file is downloaded, which is devops.pem, or let's see that here. So here it is, right? Du demo.pem. The path here is that team. You must think that, right? Properties, if you see it, the path is that team C users narration, which means that under my C drive, right? Under the users and the narration, there is a downloads folder within which I have this one. Now the same thing you must go through from here. And I can say that your drives, C drives, are accessible through this slash drives path. It says it. Now what I'll do is that I'll simply do a cd slash drives, right? If I go inside the drive team, cd is a change directory team, which is a Linux command. Within Windows also you will see it. So cd slash drives will take you to the folder, that C drive and a D drive. So go to the C drive here, cdc you do it, and within this one you will see the various things of your C drive folder, C drive basically, within which you will see the users. Under the users you will see the narration, which is my user. In this case, in your case, you will have a different one. Look at that accordingly. Now wherever you download team, I'm not necessarily your downloads, you must aware of the path where it is downloaded and how do you go there. Now within this one team, I see a downloads. So go to the downloads folder, right? Within this one, you will see the necessary files. Whatever you're seeing it here, Whatever you're seeing it here, basically everything is visible here as well, but in a command line mode. But here you will see the du demo somewhere. Here it is, right? Now this is what you see a team. This is how you must see it, right? Du demo. Now this is what the file is available here. Now once you have this file available here, right? Consider that if I want to test it, I can do this one, du demo.pem. Now I can see that the file is available for me. Now once you have this file available for me, team, just that's it, right? Go to that and then try to run this command, which is SSH. You are giving, SSH is a client team. It is giving a request to the server, to this one with a username and password. So it will log in to that particular remote server accordingly. So this is your local terminal team where you see the Naresh or something, but when you log in, you will see a different terminal altogether. Let's start. This is going to take some time, a couple of seconds. It will let you log in. Now you can see that team, the server got changed from Nareshwar to Ubuntu, right? This is what is something we say that right now I'm sitting inside my Ubuntu Linux server. So we connected it. We got inside the Linux server. Now here you can run certain Linux commands, right? And start practicing Linux or whatever the tools that we're going to learn it from tomorrow. I'll be using the same thing here. I'll be logging into the server and I'll be running the necessary commands to install or follow the guides and everything. We will be doing it accordingly. So this is what the understand team. That's how I create a server and I log into the server. Once I log in, I do whatever I want it accordingly. It means installing the tools or working on the tools, making something, configuration changes, everything we will be working on like this. So I'll say that if I want to come out of this one, say log out, you can say log out again, right? You will be getting back to your Windows terminal again. This is your Windows where you see your C drives. You are in this folder right now. If I want to connect to the same server again, I'll run the same command again, right? So I'll run the same command again. So this will be logging into the same server again. It will go back to the Ubuntu terminal again accordingly, right? So you will have to log into this one team. This is how you would create a server. You will log into the server and you do the necessary task on your Linux server to practice the Linux. Please do practice it. And if you have any questions, let me know. So I hope you are all having this one team. And let me tell you one thing here. Now the key file that you created, which is a demo file, and the security group that you created is a one-time activity, which means that if I go on create a new instance now, right, a launch instance means every time you create a new instance, you do not need to do that. You can always just create security group once, right? I'm going for the next server here. I select it. So I'll do this. Every time I can map the same security group, which means that one security group can be mapped with multiple servers. That will not at all a problem. So do not create a separate security group for multiple servers. If you create it, not do that one. So you have to map always the same security group. Similarly, you can choose the same key file to log into all the servers again. You do not have to create a separate key file for separate servers, not required. Until unless you feel that it is necessary, you may do it, but I would recommend everybody keep constant. Once create security group, once create key file, use these two things common for every server that you're going to create. Maybe one server or 10 servers or 100 servers, doesn't matter. We can simply use the same thing again and again. Okay, so I'm not creating right now, I'm just getting back here. You click on running instances, you will see it. Now, whenever you are not using your server team, recommended to keep it in a down state, means that like I stopped here. So you select the instance, go to this one, go to drop down, there is an instance state. Under that, you will find stop or a start or a terminate. Terminate is like destroying it, like you're formatting your system. You cannot get anything back if you terminate it. Every time it will be a new system again. So you better stop it if you're not using it. If you feel that you do not require the server at all, then go ahead and terminate it. So terminate instance, you do everything. Right now I'm terminating this one. If I terminate it, I cannot get that back again, right? This will be gone off. I have to recreate a new server with all the new settings again, whatever I wanted accordingly. So just for your understanding only team, this is how you would create a server. You would stop it like this. If you do not need to access it right now, I can start it whenever I want back again. Whatever the things I did it in the server will be preserved for me as it is. Once I start, I can make use of them again. But let's say that if I terminate an instance just like I did just now, whatever the things that you have done inside that server will be lost. You cannot get that back again if you terminate it. Okay, so that is what all the understanding team that you need to have it. Okay, this is all about the things that you need to know about AWS, the service which we're going to use it to create a server, log into the server using a mobile external, and then do the necessary stuff accordingly. So this is what you need to do team by tomorrow. If you have not done yet again, please do create an account and please do start working on the servers accordingly. As I'm saying again, if you have aware of the Linux, that's well and good. If you're not aware of the Linux again, you must practice the basic Linux commands which we have given to you. Please go with that and then let me know if you see any issues team. We can discuss it, or I'll stop here for today. So let me know if you have anything, otherwise we'll wind up the session here today. Hope you all enjoy the session team. Let me know anything or any feedback that you want to let me know. Yes team, is everybody clear? Oh, there are some questions team. Wait a second, I just deployed just this one. Sorry, I was looking at. Oh, okay. Wait a second, I missed a lot of questions guys. I think these are the questions panel. Okay, so here I hope we'll have a practical session on Ubuntu if yes, and how to set up the environment. I think you got it, Atul, that we just did right. Is there any rigid stack of application in DevOps? There are some, Pandit. Maybe you can go through that. Sorry, team. I think I overlooked your questions panel. I didn't understand that you're putting the questions here. Great. So I'm just looking at it. So let me look at it. Great, Vinay. I see that you already created one long back, but I think I deactivated. Need to check it again. Please do that, Sanjay. Are those tools you mentioned are mandatory for DevOps? Yes, Pandit, they are mandatory. So this Ubuntu will act as a master or a slave. Okay. Right now, think it as master. We will create a slave agent separately later. Okay, Atul? Think that this is a master right now. We can also use exit. Yes, you can also use exit sync, Himanshu. You can use logout or exit, whatever it is, the same thing. I'm having running instance which is a paid, and if I stop the instance then I won't be charged, right? Yes, Hardik, if you stop it you don't get charged, right? Thank you, Sanjay. And are those tools mentioned as mandatory? Yes, Pandit, they are all mandatory. As I told, yes, they are all mandatory. Okay, so great. So that's all then team today. I'll see you tomorrow. Please join on time, right? Please join on time so we'll do it accordingly. So what is the best way to practice? I have a dual booting installed Ubuntu. Okay, so if you have a dual boot, do it, but for one server, again, in the future with the learning technology, we might need multiple VMs Atul. So I would prefer you to create a AWS account. That will be a lot easier than using your dual boot. Okay, so better go with AWS. That's what I say. Okay, great. Thank you so much, team. I'll see you tomorrow. Please join on time. We'll start practical mode from tomorrow. Thank you so much. Have a great evening. Take care.